OTB AM.
With Gillette, put your best face forward with our new and improved razors.
It's 7:30. You're welcome along to OTB AM. Eoin and Aisling with you right the way through until 10 o'clock this morning. And it is very much one of those Friday mornings early in the year where there is a hell of a lot happening. No matter what you're into, your interests are probably covered over the next little while. We enter into a fairly chaotic period of sport. And Aisling, Adrian used to have this habit on the show a couple of years ago where every single Friday he would badger me and annoy me and push me to the brink of fury by trying to eke out of me, what am I doing for the weekend? What are your sporting plans for the weekend? What are your matches that you're going to this weekend? And naturally, and quite sadly, I must admit, that dissipated over the last little while because there were no matches. There certainly weren't any matches to go to in a full crowd over the last little while. That's flipped on its head over the last week, I guess. And I feel I need to do tribute to Adrian Barry this morning by asking you, what are your plans for the sporting weekend?
I know, I think it's the calm before the storm. It really feels like that. There's a lot happening. And yeah, for me, I have 2 games I'm going to be going to, so I'm looking forward to that. And as you said, just because we haven't been able to go, you know, it's just, there's something exciting about it now to be able to get out and enjoy the games and head out after whatever it is you're going to be doing yourself. But I'm at 2 games. So I'm at the Kilcoo game against St. Vimbers on Saturday in the club championship, the All-Ireland semi-final in Portlaoise. So I'm looking forward to the trip there. And then on Sunday, I'm going to Omagh. So from Portlaoise up to Tyrone. And I'm going to be going to the Monaghan and Tyrone game there in the league. So, yeah, I think that's going to be a really big game. I know we're going to be talking a little bit about our GAA picks, but I think that's going to be a serious game, one to watch out for definitely this weekend. Yeah,
it's definitely one of those games that I think there's, at the first week of the season, everybody's very keen to see what happens, but particularly this year, given the way January went, all of a sudden this was a January that seemed to matter to a hell of a lot of people. Last year when we were talking about Congress and Proposal B, we were saying, you know, what would happen to the provincial championships were they to move to the start of the year. I think we kind of got a bit of an answer this year, given January was so exciting and given we've actually got a good bit of information about the 8 teams going into Division 1 this year. So I think everybody's absolutely buzzing for that. Like you're obviously on the beat for the Six Nations now at the moment. You're at the campaign or the launch of over the last couple of days. Like if you had to pick something over the next couple of weeks, even if we were to go beyond this weekend, what fixture or what moment are you pointing out and saying I cannot wait for that?
Whoa, yeah, I think it probably will be in the Six Nations. So I'm really excited for that. I think to be in the Avivo crowds, I'm really looking forward to that, and I'm very lucky I'm going to be heading along. But I'm also going to Paris to the France game, so that's probably up there. We're really looking forward to being able to go there. But I think it's Six Nations. There's just a really good buzz, and as I was on the launch this week, you could really feel it, that it's different because obviously you have the crowds and restrictions have lifted, all of these things that go with it. And I think it's anybody's title this year. You know, it's really, really tough competition this year, and you could really feel that. So I think I'll go with probably the first game against Wales in the Aviva. I'm really looking forward to that buzz. But of course, championship as well is always my number one. I love that every year. So tough call, but yeah, probably Wales against Ireland.
Poor Kilcoo. I mean, this has been the Friday morning show where we've paid tribute to Kilcoo every single week, and it just seems that the inter-county game has stepped up and says, right, okay, we're taking the spotlight this weekend.
Do you know what? I was actually talking to a few people this week, and they're really looking forward to Kilcoo because they say this team could put it up against county teams. Like, people are actually coming out with these statements to me, and I'm like, wow, that is a very strong statement. And I really do think that they are that good, and I don't think we've seen the best of them yet. So this weekend, it's going to be a big game against St. Vimbers. It's going to be a tough test for them, but I do think, if I was going to call it, they're going to come out on top, to be honest. And I think they'll do it with 5 or 6 points. But I do think that it's going to be close. But yeah, no, I think the story Kilcoo, it's only getting going. It's still a really exciting one. They haven't got their first All-Ireland, and I think this year could be the year, if I'm going to put it out there.
Right, I think a lot of people will back them on that front as well. Just back then to the National League then this weekend. I mean, the Tyrone backs her up against the wall. If they want to read too much into the media over the last little while, James Donoghue has already said on the Football Pod, which you should check out right now, that they're possibly going to get relegated this year. I think Kyle Coney reacted with a bit of surprise to that yesterday. I think possibly there's a sense that don't write Tyrone off, as we know from last year, but also even in the short term, that this sense of the McKenna Cup could possibly be utilised. If any county can do it, Tyrone could utilise a bit of McKenna Cup hurt to cause, I guess, a run of form that a lot of people aren't seeing right now.
They did it last year, Eoin. Kerry, that's
not
exactly
in the league.
what
I mean, let's forget
that's
about
how
that.
they got that hurt. They utilised that hurt. I'm so sorry, but that is exactly what happened there. But yeah, look, the McKenna Cup, it just came a bit too quick for Tyrone. They were still sunning themselves and everything else, and they couldn't get on their holiday till later than they probably anticipated, and all of those things. And yeah, their first game against Cavan, wasn't it? And it was a absolute trashing. So yeah, look, I don't think they'll be focusing too much on the league. I do think they'll obviously want to stay up in Division 1, but I don't think that's where everything lies for them. Yeah, I just, like, against Monaghan, it's going to be very, very tight. Like, I don't know. I know we're going to talk about it, so I'll give you a prediction in a little while. But yeah, I think that Tyrone, they're definitely a team for championship, and they proved that last year. They became almost a different team in championship. So I think that's, again, what they'll do. They'll try things out, and they'll definitely try to regain Division 1. I don't think that they would. I think getting relegated would be absolutely awful, because you want to stay up there with the top teams in order to be able to compete in championship and have yourself ready and all of those things. So yeah, relegation, I don't see that happening for them. But I don't see them having their best performances. I'd say they'll try things out.
Yeah, for sure. We will come to that later on. We're going to bring our quick picks back a little bit later on. We're going to do the entirety of Division 1. We're going to do a couple of games from Division 2 and pick a game from Division 3 and Division 4 each as well. So they'll be back with us a little bit later on. Will and Tommy will be on the line giving their takes on what's going to happen this weekend in the Alliance League. You can see what's coming up there, the Six Nations, in just a moment. We'll be going through some of Aisling's work at the launch this week. Andy Friend, the Connacht head coach, is going to be with us at 8:10. Sports pages coming your way at 8:30, and then those GAA Quick Picks at 9:20. After that, then we've got Conor Laverty, the down footballer. He's been in conversation with Tommy. We'll play that out at 5-9. Deal or no deal, and it is a busy morning of deals. Liverpool looking to hijack the Diaz deal, it seems, this morning. Phil Egan will be with us at 9:05, and then Tommy Walsh on last night's show will be with us from 9:30. OTB AM is brought to you by Gillette. Good morning. Start with Gillette. Put your best face forward with their new and improved razors. Part of that conversation with Phil later on is obviously going to focus a little bit on Katie Taylor, and that, if we really kind of zoom out a little bit, Aisling will kind of be the appendix on the spring of sport that we're really looking forward to. This is the fight that a lot of people have been pinpointing for quite some time, and you never know with boxing whether or not a fight is going to get over the line, and there had been previous trouble with trying to get the Taylor-Serrano fight over the line, but finally it is here, and Katie Taylor is going to headline at Madison Square Garden, which is just incredible.
So incredible, and it's about time, and I'm absolutely delighted for it. So deserved. To think that it's going to be the first women to headline at the Madison Square Garden, you know, the first female boxing, the biggest night ever, you know, in the Madison Square for them. So it's unbelievable. Delighted for both of them, and I think it's a fight that everybody wanted for so long. I wasn't sure if it was going to happen. I was just watching some press conferences and that, and just listening to Katie saying that this was her goal, you know, when she turned professional, that this is what she wanted. She wanted a headline Madison Square Garden. She wanted these big fights, and to see it actually happening is just really brilliant. So I think we're going to be in for a really historic moment, and hopefully Katie can get it done. I've no doubt she will. But it's going to be interesting, because they are definitely two different styles of boxers, but I think Katie will have enough, but it's going to be a really good one.
Absolutely, and what that might do for the prospects of potentially a homecoming fight as well will be really interesting. There's obviously a whole pile of complicated factors when we actually weigh that up as well, but we'll get Phil's take on that a little bit later on too. But Aisling, we're going to focus a little bit on the Six Nations. We are 8 days out from the opening match. You're going to be at it. It's going to be Ireland against Wales. of course, there is no PTSD whatsoever when it comes to previewing a game against Wales whatsoever. But I guess we're reading on the front of the Irish Times sports section, for example, that regional problems on hold as Wales paper over crack. So we'll do our best to either downplay or explode the hype next week on this show. But what stuck out to you from the launch? I presume everybody was in great form, excited for the new campaign.
Absolutely, yeah. There was a real sense of excitement. So how it worked was you basically got to speak to all of the coaches from each nation and then their captain. And if they hadn't announced a captain, they brought along a player with them. And we got maybe 5 minutes or so to chat to each of them. So it was really great. It was a great opportunity to really hear from each camp. Firstly, I spoke with Eddie Jones, the England coach, and he was basically just talking up Scotland. I asked him, that's his first game, it's in Murrayfield, so how he feels about it and what he's most looking forward to and all of that. And he said, they're going well, things are looking good. He was alongside Tom Curry as well. And just speaking about such an exciting young group that they have at the moment. And he was in good form. He did say their immediate goal is to win the Six Nations. The ultimate goal is to win the World Cup. And that, it is anyone's game. And he kept referring to me and being like, look, your interests lie in Ireland. We're all optimistic about our chances, and this is what makes such a great competition. So yeah, he was definitely in great form. When speaking about Scotland, I suppose he definitely said that they're on form with a number of Lions players. They'll have a big crowd there. It's a home game. It's tough for their first one, but yeah, really looking forward to it. And also mentioned Ireland as well. I just said, look, you're going to come up against them in the 4th round. I know nobody's really thinking that far ahead, but he just said, look, I'm not worried about them at the moment, but I'm glad that Andy Farrell, he's doing well. He's a good man. But look, he's not gonna do too well against us. And we have a clip from him here now.
Our immediate goal is to win the Six Nations, and obviously our ultimate goal is to win the World Cup. And we know we've got a number of areas we need to keep improving in. So it's having that discipline and that focus and that attention to make sure every day we're paying attention to the things that are going to be important in improving the team. And this is a high quality competition, Obviously, your interest is in Ireland. We speak to the people from Wales and Scotland, the French, the Italians. They're all optimistic about their chances, and that's what makes this the greatest tournament in the world.
Yeah, your first game is against Scotland in Murrayfield, a packed stadium. I'm sure it's a special one.
Yeah, no, the expectation is going to be high on the Scottish, isn't it? They've come off a win against Australia in autumn. A number of Lions players that were selected by Gregor, so they'll be expected to perform at a high level. Big crowd, particularly after the COVID, where there hasn't been, crowds for the rugby games over the last couple of months. So there's going to be a certain heightening of expectation on the Scotland team. They want to bank a home win, and we're going up there to go after them.
And the 4th game I have to mention is against Ireland. It's going to be in Twickenham, so you'll be happy enough to get the Irish at home.
Yeah. Well, we're not worried about Ireland too much at the moment because we've got some hurdles to hit before that. But I'm glad that Andy's doing well. He's a good man, but he won't do so well against us.
Yeah, Eddie Jones there, always bringing the life to these proceedings. He's got into a nice habit of just putting the pressure on Scotland. Managing to keep a straight face while saying that Scotland are going to be under severe pressure for that game when England are clearly one of the top 2 teams in this year's Six Nations. It's interesting, we're going to have Andy Friend with us after 8 o'clock this morning, and he says that Eddie Jones is his favourite coach in the world, one of the coaches that he respects the most, and obviously he worked with him a bit in Japan, and he says that Jones has this incredible ability to be the best listener in the room, where he's always the one asking the questions, and Friend had said in the previous interview that he tried his best to do an Eddie Jones while in conversation with Eddie Jones, where he would try and get in with the questions first, but Eddie Jones would always come out on top. He'd always be the one who would have shut up and would be listening and asking the questions, which kind of flies in the face completely with what we see when he's in front of the mic, because he has to talk. He is being asked the questions. That's how a press conference works, and he's such a charismatic talker. I know we kind of rip the piss at him quite a bit on this show, or try our best to. I don't think too many people could do that to Eddie Jones. But the Six Nations and the Six Nations launch will be a worse place without him, wouldn't it?
You know what? I came away from the launch and I remembered him. He was good crack. He was funny, and yeah, he was just in good form, and it really does rub off. And he is someone that I walked away and was like, geez, you remember him. So I really get that, absolutely. And I could imagine how influential he is, say, in a dressing room. Like, you do stop and listen when he talks. So yeah, he definitely he bigs up England and their chances. Doesn't worry about anyone else. Not worry about Ireland. Obviously, it's a few games away, but yeah, you got the sense that there's no fear there. And yeah, he's definitely somebody that you would never forget in a hurry. That's for sure.
It was all the teams up for media the other day. Listening to some of the Welsh contingent, how nervous are you about next weekend?
No, well, like, I think the Wales themselves, they sort of came across the obviously all the questions are going to be about Ireland to them because it's their first game, but you definitely got the sense of, if the way people are going on here, like, we shouldn't even show up, and we're going to listen to a clip in a few minutes. But yeah, that's sort of what the captain, Dan Biggar, said to me. And I suppose that was because of all the questions that were getting fired at them for the whole day. I got on the call a little bit later for the radio side of things. So they did print and online and things like that before us. And you really got that sense of all the questions about Ireland and, obviously how they're going to fare against them. But we said that Ireland are in red hot form. This was Wales coach Wayne Pivok, and he just said, like, at the moment it's their club teams that are performing so well. It's really good setup. They're obviously a class team, and to get them first up is really tough, and it's such a challenge. But he's excited about his players, some uncapped players in there as well, and they've big futures ahead, and he's looking forward to that. Also, then the captain Dan Biggar, he just said he broke the news about getting the captaincy to his grandparents first, which I thought was so funny. It wasn't even announced properly to say the media and that, and he had rang his grandparents to let them know. And he said that they had gone to the neighbours, and he said his phone started hopping, the messages were coming in, and he said, oh my God, I quickly regretted it, because he had to ring Wayne Pivok and say, look, I could have messed this up here. But he's delighted, really delighted. And he also looks at, I'm not naive to the fact that if there was other players fit, that I would probably be down the list a bit, but he's really, delighted, and it's a huge honour for him. He's also looking forward to his 100 caps as well. He referenced Johnny Sexton. The two of them were sort of having good banter, even at the start. I know they know each other from Lions tours and that, and both of them said, like, we've stayed in contact and we're good friends, and there was a little bit of back and forth with them, which was funny to see. And yeah, he's on his 95th cap at the minute. He's going for his 100. It could be at his 5th or 6th game in the Six Nations, and he's looking forward to that. So yeah, there's a clip here as well from Dan Biggar, the captain of Wales.
I mean, I'd be lying to you if it wasn't in my mind somewhere, because that's, it's impossible, I suppose, when I'm on 95 now and perhaps a few games away. But I got asked this earlier, and I suppose the question for me is, how many more can I get, rather than just saying I want 5 more. I suppose that's my attitude, is that, I want to go on and get a fair few more than 100, and that means that, I've still got to make sure that I'm playing well and keeping fit and bits and pieces like that. So I suppose that's the biggest thing. It's impossible for it not to be in my mind at the minute, which would be a hugely special achievement. But I suppose how many more I can get over 100 is more what I'm interested in. And like you said, with Johnny getting his 100, I think you'd be hard pushed to find many players in the game who deserve that accolade more than him as well. So so hopefully it can be a special campaign for myself, but more importantly, if I was to win my 100th cap in a Six Nations decider at the Principality Stadium, I probably couldn't script it better than that. I think it's well documented. Ireland are in good form, very good autumn, but if we listen to kind of everyone's opinion, we may as well not turn up at the moment. So we're just excited about, we're going there to fire some shots ourselves. We're not looking to absorb what Ireland are going to throw at us. We want to be positive. We want to make sure that we get to a good start as well. It's like you've said, it's a hugely difficult first up task, but if we can prepare that as well as we can in the next sort of 10 days, we've got the absolute confidence to go there and fire some shots, as opposed to just soak up everything Ireland throw at us.
I mean, he is just completely baiting us at this point. The temptation just jumping out of my skin to be like, yes, you're right, Dan, you're completely right. Yeah, you're terrible. You're going to get absolutely smashed the first week against Ireland. Look at the odds. Look at what you're up against. Look at your regions. Look at your injuries. There's no way in hell you can come to Dublin and win. But we're not going to go there. We're not going to fall for your tricks this year.
No.
Welsh rugby. Like they're a fascinating case study, Aisling. There's something. The Welsh regions being bad is nothing new. Sure, their results this year have been particularly bad, but they're always relatively unimpressive. Irish provinces have been exceptional for quite some time now, and Wales have been unimpressive in November for quite some time now. And yes, I guess if you compare World Cup results, if we're looking at that autumn series, for example, they're clearly a better team than Ireland. But I think that is, in microcosm, the idea that Wales just finds their feet just much quicker at much more important times than Ireland. And there is something, I don't know, there's something so weird about it. There's a secret sauce to what they do, and I used to think it was the Warren Gatland effect, and I'm sure that was part of it. But there was very much a Wayne Pivac effect last year, unless the players truly are absolutely incredible and Wayne Pivac had nothing to do with it. I doubt that's the case. I think that maybe whatever he did last season also brought him to a similar sort of bizarre standard that Gatland would have chased down through the years, because we didn't expect it last year. We didn't expect him to go and win that championship. So they're a threat for sure, but on paper they're not a threat. So which way do you see this going? Like, I mean, I guess I started by asking you how nervous you are about this, but on paper, are you saying no chance when it comes to their championship credentials?
Yeah, like, you don't write anybody off. You absolutely don't. You know, you should never go into a game like that. But if I was looking at it on paper, as you said, I think with Ireland's form at the moment, I would be in favour of Ireland. And I think that's exactly what I got from him when speaking to him. It was funny, through the whole press conference, I kept getting that vibe of just like, you know, Ireland's form, like everybody is so aware. Obviously, they see results and all of those things, and you can hear the talk and the media coverage and all of this and beating the All Blacks. But you really got that sense through the whole thing that Ireland are on a journey here. You know, they're on serious form, red hot form, and, you know, they're going to be tough to beat, and they're the ones to watch out for. I kept getting that vibe through the whole launch, and yeah, I got that again from Wales. They know the tasks that they have ahead of them, but I think on paper, if you're going to call it, I hope, I pray we're going to do it, you know. But I don't think you write them off. You definitely don't. Who knows what's going to happen in the Six Nations? But yeah, I think we have enough. Surely we have enough on.
Yeah, and if not, we will be very, very happy for Wales, and we will celebrate their success like the Celtic brethren that we are.
Absolutely.
What else came out of the midweek press conference?
I also spoke with Italy, so it was their coach Kieran Crowley, new coach in there not too long now as well, and their new captain as well, Michela Lamaro. They were in good form and really enjoyed their chat, to be honest. You know, they really just put everything out, and they're really honest, and they know they're up against it. They really do. And it's sometimes tough to be asking them those sort of questions. You know, should you be in the Six Nations after all your results? Haven't got a win since 2015, you know. I think they have trying to avoid last place finish for the 17th time, you know, in the Six Nations. So really, really tough. A lot of miserable results for them. But they were really excited and looking forward to the task ahead. And, you know, I think for Kieran Crowley, he just sort of said, like, look, it's nothing to do with us. These like, if we're here or not, it's results that has to do with us, and that's all that we can do. And that's how we'll concentrate and look ahead. And he sort of was asked as well, like, should there be relegation brought in and into the Six Nations? And he said, look, he wouldn't be opposed to it if there's ways. But he said, again, that's board talk. Like, we'll leave that to them, and all I can do is concentrate on the task ahead. And yeah, he definitely knows exactly what's ahead of him. And Michael Lamaro, the captain, he was delighted to be there, delighted to be named captain. That was really evident. You know, he spoke about telling his friends and family and what it meant to him. And also we have a clip here now as well of the coach, Kieran Crowley.
And the task that you have ahead is quite a big one. We hear a lot about the media talking about Italy being involved. How do you block all of that noise out?
Look, that's got nothing to do with us as far as a coaching or playing group, well, it has, I suppose, as far as results goes, but those are not decisions that we make, so, we just get on with our job. We wake up each morning, we have our training plan, we have our preparation for the week, we have our preparation for the game, we'll recover after the game, we'll, then look forward to the next one. We just truck on with our role. It's those decisions are for other people to make, we just have to, perform on the field.
Yeah, Kieran Crowley there speaking to Aisling during the week. Bit of reaction to the Six Nations chat. John Claffey has given his Six Nations predictions. He's going France in first place, Ireland in second place, Scotland in third. So Eddie Jones is talking him up is well justified. Fourth place England, fifth Wales, sixth Italy. Be interested to see where fourth place England would go in terms of the 18 months that follow. I think fourth place for England privately wouldn't be something that Eddie Jones would be too disappointed with, given he is somebody who manages to get the curve for the World Cup spot on most times. Darragh O'Toole has also been in touch to say no crappy quiz. Katie Taylor would prefer the crappy quiz. AB fan favourite to boot. Crappy quiz is kind of like Glastonbury Festival. It is fantastic, but it just needs a couple of fallow weeks every now and then, just for the grass to grow and for the cows to graze and for everything to get back to normality in the world before we bring it back. So we'll bring it back next week or the week after, I'm sure. So we'll have plenty of crappy quiz before the Six Nations concludes, I guess, because that's where it kind of gets the best out of itself. And there'll also be a couple of golf rounds as well as we get into the golf season. Anything else from the Six Nations launch, Aisling, before you wrap up?
Overall, it was really good. Really enjoyed it. We spoke with Ireland as well. Andy Farrell and Johnny Sexton were there. They had a long day of media, so they were really looking forward to getting on the pitch. Is what they were sort of letting us know. But they're really happy to get going and get stuck into it all. But yeah, and I suppose from the English point of view, like, they had a bit of a chaotic start. There was talk of, obviously we heard the news of Owen Farrell as well, that a big leader in their team is not going to be there due to surgery on his ankle. So that was news that just broke while we were on the launch. That was really sad news to hear. And, I think they just were saying that, look, it's given other players now a chance to sort of step up and step in there. And they've had leadership problems before, and now it's time to address them. So that was probably the big news that came out of it. And their disruption was as well, there was actually a fire in their hotel, just outside their hotel, the night before the launch. So and they had to leave and move on to another hotel. But Eddie Jones said this was not a good thing there was a fire, but a good thing that they had to show resilience, and they had to sort of change things up, and things didn't go to plan, and they had to go have their communications meeting in a pub. So they enjoyed that. Tom Curry was telling me he very much enjoyed that. But it was good that these things happen, is the vibe I got, and they learn from it. Right. Yeah, there's a picture painting here as well of England being potentially a bit of an injured animal here and could come out fighting over the next couple of weeks. So it's going to be fascinating, as I say, 8 days until Ireland against Wales. We're going to have plenty of preview here on the show over the course of those 8 days. It is 7:58. You're with us here on OTB AM, and a packed show still to come. We'll hear from Kilcoo's Conor Laverty. He's been in conversation with Tommy. We'll be bringing you our GAA Quick Picks ahead of the return of the National League this weekend. There's Deal or No Deal with Phil Egan. But up next, Connacht head coach Andy Friend will be with us.
OTB AM. This is OTB Sports Radio.
Off the ball's the best, number one.
It's the GOAT of sports apps.
Talk about the greatest of all time. Nathan, Big Joe. Big Joe's the greatest of all time. He's the GOAT. We know it. Every single time. Yes.
It's tough going. It's tough for my ego. I'm going to say I'm the Djokovic of this scenario.
I love it.
This is OTB Sports Radio. Download the OTB Sports app now.
OTB AM.
With Gillette, put your best face forward with our new and improved razors.
Coming up to 8 o'clock, you're with us here on OTB AM. Delighted to welcome Connacht head coach Andy Friend back to the show. Andy, good morning to you. How are you keeping?
Good, thanks, Eoin. How are you?
Yeah, very well. Listen, let's kick straight off with the last couple of weeks from a Connacht perspective, because this is a really interesting debate, and one we were having on the show on Monday morning, actually, about how full the glass is. And I'd be interested to get your perspective, obviously, on this, that on the one hand, you have a couple of really good performances playing an excellent brand of rugby, and on the other hand, you have two, what I assume were incredibly disappointing defeats from winning positions. So is the glass half full or half empty when you sat down to analyse everything on Monday morning?
I'm always a glass half full, mate. So, but at the same time, there was disappointment there, as you said. We had two games: the game against Leicester here at the Sports Ground, and the game over in Paris on the weekend, where we put ourselves in a really good position to win, and we didn't. So that's disappointing, and that's frustrating, and that's something that we've got to get much better at. At the same time, we've qualified to the top 16, the first Connacht team to do that. So we're really proud of that achievement, but we're very aware that our game needs to continue to improve if we're going to make it any further.
Was there any common elements to the way in which Connacht let the lead slip in both of those two games?
Upon review, they're actually quite different. So the Leicester performance, we stopped playing. We stopped backing ourselves and doing the things that had got us into that 18-point lead, and we took a real learn from that. So we went to Paris, and we continued to play, as you saw. And the rhetoric came back. We played too much. Well, from our point of view, we didn't. We actually did what we wanted to do. The issue that we had two main issues actually. One was, every time we made an error, which is a knock-on, it resulted in a scrum. And because we'd been whacked by a whole heap of injury and other things, we had two young blokes out there who were giving their best, Geordie Duggan and Greg McGrath. Greg's first cap, Sam Mele coming off the bench, his first cap. We painted a picture for Wayne Barnes that said, if the scrum goes down, it's probably going to be a penalty against Connacht. So for every scrum that we had, 5 of them, and we had 6 in that game, 5 of them ended up in penalties. So a knock-on then equaled a penalty, which meant they got yardage up the field and squeezed us. So that's just a learn for us. It's part of our growth as a squad. Said I don't believe we're going to get whacked like that again in a certain position. And the other thing that hurt us, and we've talked about it all week, so it's no secret, we've got to be much better with our defence out wide. We're currently leaking tries that we're not happy with. And it's our outside backs that have copped the whack for that one. So they've copped that on the chin. They did some really good work during the week with our defence coach, Cully Tucker, who's delivering some great messages, and I know we're going to be better.
One of the cliches that comes up after any results like you've had over the last couple of weeks is this idea of seeing the game out. Is that ever a conversation in terms of your coaching philosophy whatsoever? Because to me, seeing a game out, that phrase almost suggests a change in mentality away from how Connacht would play from kickoff.
Yeah, I think there are times in the game, like if you get in the last 2 or 3 minutes, and you would have seen us do that against Munster this year, where we had a 10-8 lead and we did see the game out. We continued to play our brand up until those last couple of minutes, and then when there's a couple of minutes left on the clock, you do need to be a little bit smarter with that. But shy of that, mate, I reckon if you try and protect that lead, you get yourself in strife. You play the game that's got you to where you are, back yourself with that, and trust that if you do make an error, which I said we did make some errors on the weekend, but your scrum's then going to be able to hold up. Your defensive line, we're going to back that. And it's not going to hurt you as much as it did on Sunday. So there is a time in the game when you can probably get in those last couple of minutes. I think you need to start to be a little bit smart with what you're doing in terms of looking after the footy. But shy of that, back the base game that you've got and keep playing.
Is that a conversation that you have with the players then, Andy? Because I presume that is part of the journey that these players go on in terms of finding that level of self-confidence. Because I've seen you say that in the past, that one of the main reason why you've seen players not develop and achieve their potential is because of a lack of self-confidence, which is almost like a heartbreaking thing to read. Like, I presume the mentality that you instill and saying to them, listen, this is our game plan, you cannot get yourself into a mentality where you're protecting what you've got in games. That all feeds into the confidence piece. Totally.
And it's not only my job, but our senior coach, Pete Wilkins, he's very good with that messaging. We've seen enormous growth in our players, certainly this year, but in years previous too, where they do start to believe, but at the same time, they're human. So they get into a new situation where, we're 18 points up against Leicester. Should this be happening? I don't know. Maybe we should protect this a little bit. And it's very hard to watch when you're watching it. But upon review, I said they're the greatest critiques of themselves anyway, the players. They get it, mate, and they know that the next time we get in that opportunity, we're going to be better. And that's what I was actually, weirdly, I was really proud of the fact that we were better in stud because we didn't stop playing. But then the rhetoric comes out that we played too much. Well, we didn't. In my view, we didn't. We had 23 offloads in that game. 17 of them went to hand. Now, 2 of them didn't go to hand, but we'd earned the right to do what we did. It was a skill execution. We had 4, which we shouldn't have offloaded, and that's the big learn. So those 4, we got to cut those 4 out. But otherwise, let's continue to be the footy team that if you win the contest, if you see clear space or clear hands, pass the football, back your skills, because that's what you do all week in training, back your skills, and that's the brand that we want to play. So we'll grow again out of that stud game.
And Andy, just speaking on growing again, 18 points against Leicester Tigers. You were up at one stage. It was 11 in Paris. How tough is it for you then as a coach to lift a team after these tough defeats? When you come off the back of 2 really tough losses, how do you say to the lads, let's go again, to bring them back again, to look forward to the next game?
I think the tricky bit is if you don't know why you've lost. Right, so if you've got no idea as to how that's just happened, that becomes really hard because you're searching for something. But in both of those games, it was really clear. The reason why we'd lost. So it's really, to me, it's really easy then to be very matter of fact about it. And as I said, Pete Wilkins delivers those messages to the boys. He is very, 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 very good with his messaging. The message came across loud and clear. In the Leicester game, we lost for this reason. In the stud game, we lost for this reason. And when it's logical and it makes sense to you, go, yeah, I can see that. I can actually see that. So the system ain't broke. We just got to be better at implementing it, or we just got to make sure that instead of knock on doesn't turn to a scrum, which turns to a penalty. We've got to be better in that area. So that's a focus for us. And those conversations actually aren't tricky. It's the ones where you got no idea as to why you lost, or there's 4 or 5 reasons as to why you've lost, but it wasn't the case in those 2 games.
And you did mention as well, when I spoke to you after the Leicester Tigers game, you said that you're working on a new brand this year. You're close to getting it right, but you just haven't got there yet. Is it something that just needs more time?
Yeah, like anything, I don't think you never reach perfection, do you? There's always a new ceiling that you either put in place yourself or that's out there that you're trying to reach. So we'll never get it right. You'll probably, even if we do play a brilliant brand of footy and get a win, I'm not going to tell you it's perfect because it won't be. So we're always growing. We're always searching for that optimum game that we're going to get. And the beauty of our sport is that every weekend you get another chance to to put your style out there and to test yourself. So we've got that great test tomorrow against Glasgow. They're a team sitting ahead of us in the ladder at the moment, and it should be a great contest because Nigel Carrollman, our old attack coach, is over there, so he'll have a few tricks up his sleeve for us tomorrow, no doubt.
There's a bit of time, obviously, but before the Leinster doubleheader, Andy, just on the fixture itself, how much did you weigh up the possibility of bringing that game out of the sports ground into a bigger capacity stadium?
No, I think as everyone's aware, we took a game out of the sports ground earlier this year, the game against Ulster up to Aviva, for good reason, I felt. But at the same time, I think these big games, we've got a tremendous supporter base here. And I think it's really important to back our supporters and to leave the game here so that they can come and enjoy that at the sports ground. So it actually was, I had no input into the decision, to be honest with you, Eoin, but I was really pleased when I read that was the decision, because I think it is the right decision. This is our home. This is where we want to play. We got the first leg of 2. Let's have a red-hot crack at them and see how we go from there.
Well, what's really interesting is actually just this morning in the Irish Examiner, Ronan O'Gara is speaking about the sports ground in his column, and he said that I'd love to get Andy Friend's thoughts on the surface at the sports ground, that he reckons that your team's skill set would be better suited by a different quality surface, a faster pitch potentially at the sports ground. I presume if that change did happen, that would be something you would have an input into. Is it something you've considered?
Oh, without a doubt. And I said it's not an Andy Friend decision, that one. It's a Willie Ruan and a Connacht board decision, but that will be happening. There'll be a 4G pitch going in here at the end of this season, so which is the right thing for us, and that's the brand that we want to play. You saw it over in Paris the other day. When we play on a fast surface, that's the style that we want to play. So that 4G pitch will be coming in here, and hopefully it'll be here for the start of next season, which is very exciting for all of us.
Speaking of that excitement, just to touch quickly on that Leinster game, this is what we want. It's what Jack Carty said, but before when he realised that was the fixture. Obviously there was the game in the RDS a month before Christmas, where for the first half of that game, yourself and Leinster were going toe to toe. I presume that's going to inform quite a bit about how you prepare for April.
Yeah, we'll definitely know each other. There's no doubt about that. And what we've shown our last couple of visits there to the RDS, last year we had that win, and then this year up until just before half time, I thought we were very much in the game, but the 2 tries either side of half time, that damaged us. But it goes back to, again, what we started talking about at the front end of the show, which was our ability to play for 80 minutes. We're not a team that's doing that at the moment, and that's something that, if you don't play for 80 minutes against Leinster, you're not going to come out on top. In fact, you're going to get whacked. So we're very aware of that, and it's between now and that first Leinster performance at the sports ground here that we need to continue to build the team to make sure our consistency over 80 minutes is over that 80-90% of skill execution, which is what we're trying to target. So a bit of work to do, but I know if we can get there, we'll cause some trouble.
It's going to be a really interesting few weeks for a couple of your players in the green of Ireland. Can we start by talking about Jack Carty for a moment here? It's great to see him back in the Ireland squad. Privately, how big a goal was that for him over the last couple of years to get back into an Ireland squad and to potentially get some minutes in the Six Nations?
Yeah, it's been a tricky time for him, but at the same time, it's been a magical time for him where he's just grown as a man. He's grown as an on-field with his on-field performances, but also off-field. And I think it's the off-field stuff that's got him back to where he is now. There's no doubt in Jack's skill. He didn't become a less skillful player after the World Cup, but it's so much as to the belief you have in yourself and what you believe you're capable of. And one of the things that Jack's thrived on this season has been his captaincy. He's been in our leadership group since I got here, but he's really stepped up this year, and he's really taken ownership of that captaincy. You can see the pride he has in the jersey and how much it means to him and how much he believes he's correct in thinking this way, that his performance will have an influence on the players, and it does. So he's found that inner strength, and he's found that confidence, and he's playing with all the skills that we always knew he had, but unless you've got that self-belief and confidence, you often don't show it. So not only myself, but everybody's just really proud of him, and great to see him back there and hopefully the Irish green jersey.
And I guess it kind of comes back to the confidence conversation we were having a moment ago. Did you identify that with Jack, that potentially as an out half it's even more important for him to go into every game high on confidence, and potentially giving him the captaincy and the co-captaincy was a big part of that, and I guess giving him a token for the belief that you were going to show in him as a coach?
Yeah, I think, like anyone in life, mate, if someone believes in you and gives you space to be good, if you're going to be good, you will be good. So, all we try and do here is give the players the tools to be at their best, whether that be their body, craft and mind. They're the three key things we keep talking about. So we work on those 3 key elements. Jack did a lot of work with the mind part of that, and I said, and found that belief, and that's, I continue to say we're called support staff for a reason, because we support these blokes that got skills. We just got to support them in the right way to allow them to be their best. So it's great when that happens, and Jack's certainly a testament to that.
And Andy, how do you think Ireland will go? Obviously the first game against Wales in the Aviva. How do you fancy them?
Yeah, well, they're coming off great form, aren't they? I thought, the autumn test, the Japan All Blacks and then Argentina test, I thought they were outstanding. It's probably some of the best rugby I've seen Ireland play. So they're heading into that first Welsh game full of confidence. I've no doubt they'll grow again from that. So I think it's going to be really exciting Six Nations for Ireland.
Can I ask you about Mac Hansen, Andy? Because it feels that his name has kind of, to a certain point in the country as a whole, gone under the radar a little bit going into this Six Nations squad, rightly or wrongly. But it does seem that there will be an opening in significant moments, I think, in that back three over the course of the next few weeks. How ready is this guy to make an instant impact in this Ireland team?
Yeah, I think he's definitely ready, mate. Like the confidence he's shown since he's come in here, and when he came in here, as you'd probably be aware, he was occasionally a first choice for the Brumbies, but as soon as he'd signed with us, he came off the bench. So you got a player who's he's definitely in the 23, but not always on the starting sheet. But as soon as he got here, mate, he's you could just see his talent. So he actually said to me when he first came here too, he said, my best position's fullback. But we haven't played him at fullback as yet. We stuck him on the wing because we had Tiernan O'Halloran at fullback, and and T's been going well in that position. And as soon as we put Mac on the wing, he was killing it. So there's no need to change. So I do believe you'll get a very similar Mac Hansen, if not a better Mac Hansen, if you do throw him in at fullback. But his ability to read the game is exceptional. The skill set that he's got is very, very good. He's been guilty of a couple of defensive errors, but at the same time, he's made some amazing tackles this year. So I've no doubt there's not an issue with his defence. If he's given an opportunity, I think he's going to go very, very well.
That's interesting. So there's a live possibility, Hansen off the bench potentially in those first couple of games, given the versatility that he has across those back three.
Well, yeah, and he used to play 10. Like he was a 10. When I first saw him in Canberra, he was playing 10. So when we signed him, we actually signed him knowing that he could play back three, but he could also cover at 10 for us. Now, we haven't given him any time at 10 because we've had Jack and we've had young Connor fit. So, we've got two very good 10s there. But in time, we'll look to give him some time at 10. So he's the perfect player to have in your squad to be able to take away on tours. And, if he's not starting, he's definitely a bloke you'd be wanting to have on the bench.
Yeah, for sure. The sky really seems the limit for the guy. Andy, it's great as ever chatting to you. Best of luck this weekend against Glasgow and, of course, over the next few weeks. And enjoy the Six Nations.
Thanks, Alan. Thanks, Aisling. Good to talk.
Cheers. Andy Friend, Connacht head coach there on the line. It is 8:17. You're with us here on OTB AM. OTB AM is brought to you by Gillette. Good morning. Start with Gillette. Put your best face forward with their new and improved razors. Now, Tommy Walsh made his return to Off the Ball last night to look ahead to the new inter-county hurling season, and we'll bring you the full chat from 9:30 this morning. You can also podcast it on OTB GAA. But Nathan had to start with TJ Reid's antics of the weekend as his dramatic goal dragged Ballyhale Shamrocks to the All-Ireland club final.
Listen, he was a magician, and I think he definitely is in the Eddie Kerr bracket, the Henry Shefflin bracket, the DJ Carey. Maybe, I suppose, the three kings of Kilkenny forwards, if you go back, we'll say 100 years, Trin Laurie Marr, midfielder, JJ Delaney, defender. They're the kings. We'll say we've had great hurlers, serious hurlers. But as regards the top guys, the top 5 or 6, I think TJ Reid is in that bracket without a shadow of a doubt. I don't think there's any debate as far as I'm concerned.
And there ain't no bracket higher than that. Like, that is some very high praise, and still doing it at 34. When you think back to him breaking through, like he was part of that squad, and I think on the fringes in 07, came off the bench in 08, and 09 was captain in 2010, and then firmly establishing himself from 2011. What are your memories of him coming in and being around the squad when he was in his early 20s?
Yeah, well, he was a magician from 17. When he was younger, he would have played a lot in goal, and when he was maybe 14 on the minor teams, when he was too young probably to play out the field. So his hands were always magical. And when he came on the scene, he was an absolute magician. He definitely went straight into the top bracket of fielders in the game, even within that Kilkenny team who had great men in the air. TJ could win the ball from in front or behind, whether that was midfield, half forward line or full forward line.
TJ Reid is just an alien, Aisling. That's my conclusion on this.
Just the pressure of that last puck of the game, and to be able to do what he did is just, as Tommy said, a magician. But it's just unbelievable, and only certain players can do that, and he is one of those players that will always step up for you in those situations. God, you'd love to have him on your team. But yeah, just the way he placed the ball, and he also, I don't know who the other Ballyhale Shamrocks player was, but he was blocking the view of the goalkeeper. The yellow helmet he had on.
Yeah, Colin Fennelly.
Colin, was it Colin? Oh, geez, I didn't realise it was Fennelly. And he was just so smart as well and then the goalkeeper did a strange thing, I thought, where running out to it. And yeah, it came so far off his line. Obviously, he was trying to get to it first to block it. But yeah, it was strange, I thought. But what a shot. Unbelievable. And yeah, just amazing to see.
Yeah, there is a tiny bit left of the club season, but that is the moment of the club season, really, isn't it? It's not going to be topped at this point. Let's run you through some of the back pages and the sports pages this morning. We can actually start with OTBSports.com. Callum Chambers says move from Arsenal to Aston Villa is a no-brainer. Frank Lampard wasn't given enough time at Chelsea, says John Giles. Frank Lampard has gone for a second interview at Everton. I said yesterday that I didn't think he would get the job. I was wrong. I'm sorry. Frank Lampard is going to be in, it seems, and it looks like the front runner at this point. It seems that the interview on Sky Sports by another candidate the other day didn't do him any favours, but Frank Lampard certainly in the news and on a lot of the back pages, which we'll get to in a moment. Juventus completing that deal for Dusan Vlahovic from Fiorentina, and then Ireland defender Diane Caldwell has joined Manchester United. Also Manchester United winger Diallo signs Rangers loan deal. So plenty happening in the transfer window. Phil Egan will be with us later to go through deal or no deal. The Irish Times is where we're going to start this morning in terms of the newspapers. Jerry Thornley's piece, front and centre, regional problems on hold as Wales paper over cracks, while brilliant Barty blitzes keys to reach Melbourne final. The tennis is up and running obviously this morning as well, and Nadal has put Berrettini to the sword over 4 games, 6-3, 6-2, 3-6, 6-3. So he's going to play the winner of Tsitsipas versus Medvedev, which starts in about 9 minutes time. The back of the Irish Independent this morning, Lampard set for Toffee's job as fans vent fury at Pereira, and Moldbreaker Farrelly named on referees panel for league. So Maggie Farrelly is in line to take charge of at least one Allianz League game in the coming weeks. She's been elevated to the national referees panel for the competition. The Irish Examiner this morning leads with Christy O'Connor's column on inside forwards. Endangered species, he asks. Christy O'Connor explores why marquee forwards are in such short supply in Gaelic football. Ronan O'Gara then has laid the land ahead of the Six Nations. Plenty of spice to savour during the Six Nations. You've also got Tom Hunt's A to Z on the Winter Olympics, which starts in a week's time, and Oisin McConville touching on that point that we were talking about earlier. January now the most important month in the calendar. It certainly is the most important January I can remember in recent years. The back of the Irish Sun, Diaz deal breaker. Spurs agree £48 million move, but agents row could KO, and that's exactly what seems to have been happening this morning. Liverpool have got in for Luis Diaz now, and it looks like he's going to be heading to Anfield. Liverpool great at gazumping a move and getting in there on deadline day, or close to the deadline I should say. Katie, big date set. Katie Deadline going to fight off against Amanda Serrano on April 30th, and Fury gets duck jibe. Tyson Fury has been accused of ducking a showdown with Alexander Usyk for the undisputed world heavyweight crown. And another interesting one there actually in the back of the Irish Sun, and on deck for Lampard. Frank Lampard plans to recruit top-rated Ireland coach Anthony Barry from Chelsea if hired by Everton, so it'll be an interesting one to keep an eye on if Frank Lampard is appointed as Everton boss. The lead on the back of the Mirror is Katie Taylor. Apple of our eye, they go with. Katie cements incredible legacy by headlining at iconic New York venue as boxing history is made. There's your boy Traore, Aisling. Conte blow as Traore snubs Spurs for Barca. Not good enough for Spurs last week, Aisling, but off to Barcelona he is.
Yeah, and look, this could be what he needs. This could be it. You know, he's going back to, you know, his home club where he started out. So yeah, it could be something that'll rejuvenate his form, and we'll see him back in action. But yeah, it's not the Barcelona of old. So when I heard the news yesterday, I sort of said to myself, wow, Barcelona. And then I said, no, it's not really the Barcelona of old, is it? So they've their own issues and financial problems they're trying to fix up at the minute. But look, good for him. Hopefully, you know, it works out for him, and yeah, we see him in better form, you know.
The back of the Irish Daily Star this morning then, prisoner of war, Jesse. United are terrified. Jesse Lingard reckons Manchester United are scared to let him leave and risk being left with egg on their faces. Sources close to the England days claim United are petrified of parting company with Lingard and then seeing him prove a big success elsewhere. Like, I mean, you can see why he's saying that, and it would just be bizarre. Like, once you're Manchester United and you're selling somebody, there's always going to be a sense of paranoia about that player succeeding elsewhere. You can't live in a constant prison, as to use that phrase, of paranoia, where you think a player you're going to sell is going to succeed. Otherwise, you're going to make no money on your players. You're not going to make any profit on them. You're not going to even make. You're not even going to cut your losses in any way. You may as well just hold on to them until their contracts are done and keep handing them out contracts and keep them all as Manchester United players. I just find that such a weird state of mind, that if Manchester United don't think Jesse Lingard is good enough to get meaningful minutes for the team, that they don't think he's good enough to sell. I just find that strange. You've also got Liam Brady here in the back of the Irish Daily Star talking about James Apankwa and his move to Udinese from St. Pat's, and he's really talking him up. He says it's a great opportunity to go and play in Serie A. You have to jump at the chance. Defensively, there's nowhere better to learn how to defend and learn that skill. Interesting point. I mean, Serie A at the moment seeing its most goals scored per 90 ever, really. So potentially that is one of the best places to learn defensively. There's loads of goals going in. You're going to be up against it. At the back of the Irish Daily Mail is it's showtime. Taylor finally to face Serrano in historic clash, and Monty Lash's Harrington Ryder Cup captaincy. Lashes may be a bit strong. He said that there were too many mistakes made last year during the Ryder Cup. Yes, the US played well, but Europe didn't play to their potential for the first time in my memory, and we have a chance to do that in Rome, he says. It was a heavy and poor defeat. We have to have a rethink about how we pick the team and how we get our top 12 playing. Were our top 12 playing in that Ryder Cup? Possibly not. Were they playing in the right groups? Possibly not. Would it have changed the results? Possibly not. Yeah, I guess as far as golf goes, that is lashing Padraig Harrington out of it, to be fair. But it wouldn't have been a record defeat, and that was a shame. So we have to get back on track in a hurry. So Colin Montgomery, not a fan of how Padraig Harrington picked his team and picked his pairings last year. The Daily Telegraph is an interesting one this morning on a couple of fronts. Exeter axed Native American branding. They have replaced it with a Celtic chief, it seems, and they're going to keep the name Chief, so Exeter Chiefs will remain, just with different branding, moving away from the Native American trope. And then the other story here in the front of the Daily Telegraph sports section is Marcel Jacobs, who's on an interview, his first interview since the Olympics outside of his home country, I think. I did not dope to win Olympic title, he says. All of his success last summer was down to extreme hard work. Asked directly if he has ever taken illegal substances, he said absolutely not, and I would not. I would never do anything as an athlete competing for my country that would bring disrepute on me as a man or on my nation. So that's what he's had to say. The back of the London Times, scrum laws changed over paralysis fear. So World Rugby going to trial a new law during the Six Nations to address a scrummaging technique that has left hookers suffering degenerative neck injuries and fearing paralysis. So obviously scrummaging was changed in 2013 to make it a little bit safer. Crouch, bind, set was brought in. You had Scott Baldwin of the Worcester Warriors and Wales, who played at hooker, who was almost paralysed because of axial loading. And he said the impact, it feels like a neck is about to snap. So that hidden danger is what they refer to it as. That needs to be addressed. And World Rugby did ban axial loading before the 2019 World Cup, but they were warned in March of the following year that the practice persisted. So they've been under huge pressure from the Rugby Players Association to take action. So the law trial is designed to ensure that the packs hold their own weight during the bind phase, retaining a small gap between the front rows, and do not begin applying pressure until they engage. So I guess the length of time that your body and your neck is under severe pressure will be reduced by this measure. It's going to be mandatory for hookers in the men's, women's and under 26 nations to keep 1 foot forward during the bind phase of the scrum engagement sequence, acting as a brake basically. So if the hooker has both feet back, it is impossible for the pack to hold its weight, and axial loading is the inevitable outcome, but they're going to keep a foot forward, keep pressure on that as opposed to on their neck. So that's the latest thing they're going to try out on that front. A couple of other things to go through here. The back of the Guardian leads with Ash Barty. She's going to be up against Danielle Collins tomorrow morning in the women's final in Melbourne. Decision day for Everton. Oshiri flies in for Lampard, Pereira and Ferguson. Talks, it definitely seems that they are the three front runners for the job at the moment. Duncan Ferguson potentially just behind Frank Lampard in the order of likelihood of them to get the job, and you've got that extra story there as well. And finally, the Herald, Lampard set for Everton. Toffee's Rob back on Pereira move as Ferguson still in the picture, and Dublin's €1.1 million tops the COVID booster chart. So given the bailout of sports bodies, the county board's not doing so bad, it seems, when we look back at the financial accounts of 2020 and 2021. Right, it is time, speaking of GAA, for our first quick picks of 2022.
Some of these critics, these pundits, I absolutely adore them lads. I have unbelievable time for them, but they're a great bunch, but it's not acceptable.
I'd like to play the hard man when they're on it. It's not very pleasant when you're trying to manage a team. All you're looking for is a bit of civility and a bit of decency, but they just miss you like you know, you have nothing to do with the bloody occasion.
I mean, this is the greatest competition in Gaelic football, and it's possibly going to be one of the greatest iterations of the greatest competition in Gaelic football, and it all gets underway tomorrow evening. I may be overstating things a little bit, but I'm unbelievably excited for this year's National League. The 8 teams you have in the top tier are excellent. A couple of them looked brilliant in pre-season, and the majority of them taking pre-season seriously, except for you, Tyrone. Everybody seems to be really on form coming into the season this year. Will, Tommy is with myself and Aisling. How are you, lads?
Morning, folks. I thought you were referring to the quick picks as being the greatest competition in the GAA.
No, nobody even remembers what happened last year. We have a leaderboard.
As a back-to-back winner, I can remember this, lads. I've won the last 2 years.
Nobody else.
I wasn't even allowed in it. Well, so.
Well, welcome aboard then.
Yeah, there was kind of like a situation where these quick picks were going on. Everybody was taking the prediction seriously, and then Aisling out of nowhere was predicting me to win the Women's All Ireland. And what was the other prediction? Tyrone to win the Men's All Ireland.
Yeah.
And
just small one.
Yeah, just the two biggest trophies in football were predicted outside of the quick picks. So we've drafted Aisling in to try and put some honourability on our quick picks. Nobody remembers who finished last year. That's the most important thing. We're going to what we're going to do probably every week during the National League is pick a game from Division 4, a game from Division 3, 2 from Division 2, and then go through all of Division 1. It's the only way we'll be able to do this somewhat and get everything in Division 1 covered, and also pay attention to a couple of games down the other divisions. So we'll get straight into this, guys. We'll go into Division 1 here. Dublin against Armagh, Kildare against Kerry, Mayo against Donegal, and Tyrone against Monaghan are the fixtures. As you can see on screen, we're starting with Croke Park tomorrow night. Dublin against Armagh. Everybody is going for Dublin here. Tommy, you're the biggest Armagh fan in this chat. You're surely not fully confident of picking Dublin this weekend, are you?
Yeah, it is a good point. I'm a big Armagh fan. I just think if Dessie Farrell hadn't played the likes of Kilkenny in the league and a couple of the other stalwarts that he's had, I would feel like Dublin had a slightly different approach this year going into the league, which they may have had in previous years, and I feel like they would have got caught if they had that approach. But I think it's changing. I think it's been described as the great reset in Dublin football, that they know they're not going to have McCaffrey, they're not going to have Cluxton. Paul Mannion has pretty much ended any talk of him going back at the minute, especially while he's playing with Crokes and he's injured. So Dessie Farrell really has an opportunity now to properly put his prints all over this team, and he's starting to do that. He gave a good few young lads a chance in the Oberon Cup.
40 players used in the Oberon Cup.
A lot of players used, and he's talking this week about having to make big decisions and cutting his panel down and getting rid of a lot of players. So it's no new thing, Dublin throwing out new stars or younger players, or even their Blue Stars team in the Oberon Cup over the years, because I think they learned that after the All-Ireland finals, or when they were in the middle of their 5 in a row, they needed to start giving their main players the month of January off, and they come back into February and probably start playing the league without much training under their belts. Most of them would have tans from the Caribbean or wherever they'd been for their team holiday. So in those years, though, I'm not sure many of the players in the Oberon Cup got much of a chance. They were never really brought into the panel later on in the year. It was a pretty set Dublin 30, we'll say. The depth was so strong. But this year, I think the players that are getting a chance, they're putting their hands up. So it'll be really interesting to see who Dessie Farrell starts this weekend. Is he going to start Lee Gannon, who one of the under-20 stars last year, very highly rated, a dual star from Whitehall, Colmkill, playing in the defence? Is he going to get a start, in the league against Armagh? That'd be a big statement if he was.
Has to. You have to start Gannon, don't you? Like, he's been their star of the Oberon Cup. I mean, if that happens in any other county at the moment, given the trend we're seeing in January, that player starts. They're going to need another cornerback, aren't they?
I think so, and I think that'll be really interesting to see. Have you ever dotted across the road to watch Lee Gannon in action for Whitehall Colmkills?
I mean, I can't say I have. I feel that it would be treasonous to watch any club. No, I'm only joking. I actually haven't, Tommy.
Yeah, but I've only kind of seen clips of League Annan, and maybe it was the 20s game last year that I'd seen, and half kind of had an eye on him. I really don't know that a whole pile about him. Like he's in all these lists of players to watch in 2022, so that's going to be really interesting. I think Armagh are going to be brilliant. I think they're going to give Ulster a proper rattle this year. I think they're going to stay up in Division 1. I just think Croker, first night back, Dublin have to make a statement. There has to be a sting in this Dublin tale. They have to be bouncing back from last year. So I'm just expecting Dublin, a cracking game, but for Dublin to come through. That's a very long answer, lads. Hopefully you've a bit of time to come in now as well.
How careful consideration did you give to Armagh potentially winning this game, Aisling?
I'm a big Armagh fan as well, so I definitely looked at this and I thought long and hard, because Dublin aren't the Dublin of old. Watching them against Laois, they had 14 men, I know, so it was tough enough for them, but you definitely see that they are trying things out, and I think Desi probably is using the league to see who he wants to start in Championship. And I suppose the difference there is years ago, they, like say the past 2 years or so, they would have known who was coming on and they would have gave these lads a go in the league, but not necessarily use a lot of them for Championship, when I think they need to this year. So, you know, he's working on, I suppose, game plans and also how they work together and how they play together. So I think they'll have to have a big statement, as Tommy said. But for Armagh, like Kieran McGeeney's doing serious stuff there. He's building something there. I think last year, first year in Division 1, in a good few years, they held their own. They'll definitely be looking to regain Division 1 status and go well in Ulster. It was a loss to Monaghan last year by 2 points in the Championship. They were unlucky. And look, they've really exciting players like Oisin and Rian O'Neill, you know, unbelievable footballers. And I think it's just about clicking for Armagh, and it's so close. They had the influence of Kieran Donaghy in there as well. And they're exciting. I definitely think they're going to do something this year. I hope they do. I think they really deserve to do something. They're thereabouts always at Ulster. But I just think against Dublin in Croke Park, it's too much for them. But look, I do think they'll do well in the Division 1 this year.
It's interesting when you kind of look through where Armagh have come from over the last couple of years. They have to be aiming to be the next Monaghan now, don't they? They need to be disappointed with not winning an Ulster Championship every year. They need to be disappointed about not making an All-Ireland semi-final every year. Like that's the only place that this Armagh team can go. In the context of this weekend, Oisin O'Neill is back. I know they've had Andrew Murnan available throughout pre-season, which is not something that they've had for quite some time. Conor Turbot is on fire for Queens. There are a lot of elements about this Armagh pre-season, if we forget everything of previous years, that look really encouraging coming into tomorrow night. The only reason I've gone for Dublin is because of the Croke Park factor. I completely subscribe to the argument about the sting in the tail, by the way. I just think that the sting in the tail is going to come later on in the year when the league properly heats up and when the summer gets going. I think Dublin have been unconvincing in pre-season, but they've needed to be unconvincing. Yeah. They've needed to try out all these players. So I'm actually quite worried about this prediction tomorrow night. But when it came down to it, I went for Dublin. Will, final word to you on this one?
Yeah, I saw two of the three of Dublin's games that they played in the O'Byrne Cup, and it was very much a case of slowly but surely introducing the more seasoned players as the campaign went on. Like they did reasonably well against Offaly when they got themselves into a tight enough position in the second half. They had enough to score the 2 goals to win. Then they kind of opened up a little bit against Louth, which ensured that they were going to get to the final. And then I watched their final against Laois last week. And after John Small was sent off, I thought Dublin did really well when they were down to 14 men against a Laois team who'd played well 3 times in the previous week. So I think they'll be happy enough with how they went in pre-season so far. It's very difficult, even if it is a Dublin team that might be slightly experimental or some of the new faces might come in, though I think the team is going to be a lot closer to the one that started the O'Byrne Cup game than what started at the outset of this campaign. I don't think you're back against Dublin at Croke Park, as good as Armagh have been. And could you imagine if Armagh did pull off a little bit of an upset, what that would do for their confidence about staying in Division 1 for the season? But I just think Dublin open with a win tomorrow night.
Kick us off on Kildare, Kerry then, Will. Everybody's going for Kerry here.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to argue against it from what we've seen from Kerry so far. I mean, they obviously took the McGrath Cup incredibly seriously, as we spoke about a few times on the show, and they opened up really well against Cork in the final of that competition. Look impressive so far. In saying that, I saw Kildare against Westmeath, and in that game particularly, Kildare were excellent. They won the short group effectively in the O'Byrne Cup because they just had to beat Westmeath and Carlow because it was the one with one team short. Lost some penalties against Laois in Stradbally a couple of weeks ago in the semi-final. that game was in Carlow. They lost that game on penalties, but played reasonably well against the Laois team, who actually went out entirely full strength and went to try and reach the finals. So Kildare have been pretty good as my dog decides to sit on a squeegee.
Hank has woke up.
He disagrees. I was going to call
Hank has woke up.
He's obviously a Kildare supporter who thinks it's Newbridge or nowhere and they're going to take Kerry down at the weekend. But I had left him in his little bed and he was nice and quiet for the start of the quick picks. He obviously heard me speaking at some point about Dublin and jumped into the room. So hopefully he stays quiet with his doggy toy now in a minute. But yeah, I think it's hard enough to go against Kerry beating Kildare. It's difficult to start back to the top flight for the Lily-Whites this weekend against the Kerry team, who've been pretty impressive with everything they've done so far.
He just disagrees, flat out with what you just said there.
Sincerely disagree.
If Kildare caused an upset on Sunday in Newbridge, Hank knew. Hank is the new Paul the Octopus, and we need to get his takes on every single week of fixtures from now on, because he is in agony right now thinking about Kerry possibly walking to this game. I think we've all picked him, so we can move off this one quickly to Mayo Donegal, but I'm in agreement with Will. I think you know that meme of the person sitting back playing Xbox and they lean forward to take it seriously. Like, Kerry have been in that crouched position playing video games for the entirety of January. I hate that phrase, taking no prisoners, but they really are. I mean, the idea of two lads being brought on after playing Sigerson earlier in the day is not right, but it shows where the mentality is at in this team right now. Being ready for this year's National League was clearly highly important.
Just to say, very quickly, I think Kildare could give staying in Division 1 a big rattle this year. And it'll be tough. They have a new management team in there, but they have to get a kick out of having the likes of Glenn Ryan, Anthony Rainbow, Dermot Early involved, and now Paul Galvin too, so that's going to be good to watch.
Just quickly, there's a new Kerry jersey as well, which we can put up on screen since we're on this fixture right now, if we want to get to that now. There we are. So Kerry have ditched the group off the Kerry group, and it's now gone to Kerry on the front of the jersey with a pattern behind it. I am not the judge of jerseys, as everybody who watches the show knows. I've got a terrible sense of style, don't know anything about it, but that is certainly a jersey, and that certainly has a pattern, and it is certainly green, and it is certainly gold, and the word group isn't on it.
It looks good on David Clifford, but I think anything would look good on David Clifford, really. Do you know what I mean? A footballer like that. It said the new jersey is returning to a more traditional look, with the whole design being centred on the iconic Kerry crest. So, do you know what? You look good, you feel good, you play good.
Absolutely. Mayo Donegal, we have a bit of a difference of opinion on this one. Everybody going for Mayo with the exception of Aisling. Why Donegal, Aisling?
Yeah, I don't know, this one really stood out to me, and I just thought about Mayo in the league, and every year I watch them in the league, and they never do a hell of a lot. They always sort of work on things, and you see these results happening all the time, and I just think that this has to be a massive year for Donegal. This has to be, I was thinking about, Declan Boner is back in, he's staying in. For how long? It could be just a year. So I think it's a big year for him. Then you have Michael Murphy, all of these things, and I just think they need to get off to a really good start this year and really grow in the league and work on things for getting ready for championship. And I just think that this could be a big statement, to beat Mayo. I'm a big Mayo fan, but I just think that now when I seen the team last night for Mayo, I said, oh God, they're really putting out a really strong team. I didn't really expect that, but they normally take a while to get going. That's how I would describe Mayo, and they come good come championship. So something just told me Donegal.
There was definitely big reaction to that Mayo team, and it is a strong team. Is it necessarily stronger than the other teams? Tommy, if you want to pick up this, it definitely feels that we're just kind of seeing a team, first of all, on a Wednesday, and it's strong, and it's the first week of the league. I think once we see all the team sheets this weekend, I think a lot of them will jump off the pages, being like, right, okay, everybody's taking this thing seriously.
I agree, Eoin. I think the story of the weekend, or the story of the Mayo team, really is Jason Doherty starting back at 14, and what a story that is. Hasn't played since Donegal and Super 8s back in 2019. That's a different lifetime ago. He did his right cruciate, and then 12 months later, before the season resumed, he did his left cruciate. So he has just had a torrid time with injury. Fantastic to see him back wearing the number 14 jersey. Another point worth noting, there was a story in the Independent during the week that Aidan O'Shea might have to get used to starting from the bench and becoming an impact player, and that maybe James Horan's decisions around captaincies may have fed into that. I don't know if Michael Verney knew that Aidan O'Shea was going to be on the bench before the weekend. It's a very interesting one. Could he be an impact player this year, or could he be playing a different role altogether? Aidan O'Shea is going to be playing an influential role for Mayo, regardless of where he is. So that'll be interesting to see. Aidan Orme is worth keeping an eye on this year. Andy Warren picked him out last year as one of his players to watch on the Mayo bench before the Leitrim game. Didn't get a huge amount of game time. He was an under-20 star a couple of years ago. Was flying for Knockmore as well. So keep an eye on that one. And
came on in the All-Ireland, didn't he?
Yeah, he did, yeah. He came on. He's quite light, but the lad has all the football in the world. So I just think Mayo are going to do it. And I think it's a decent team. There's some interesting changes. I just think they're going to get by Donegal this weekend.
In a prediction that's going to definitely not go wrong for us, everybody has picked Monaghan to beat Tyrone this weekend. Will O'Callaghan pick this up?
Yeah, look, we've spoken about this a lot during the week. People are familiar with James Donoghue on the Football Pod predicting that the All-Ireland champions are going to be relegated and perhaps they won't be taking the league that seriously. I would disagree with him on that. I think there's so many strong teams in Division 1, so many Ulster teams in Division 1 as well. Tyrone are going to be going out to try and win every single week. I think they're a little bit kind of late to the party. Obviously, a lot's been made by the fact that they had their holiday. Then that performance against Cavan, people are thinking, are Tyrone going to be maybe a week or two behind some of the rest of the teams in their preparations for the league? We go back to an Ulster final last year. The Monaghan will look back at the video and feel that they perhaps could have won. It went down to 1 point in Croke Park in the end. So these two teams are very difficult to separate at the best of times, whatever about the preparations they would have had going into the league. So before anyone in Tyrone starts using this as motivation that OTB has written them off ahead of the first game of the league, I think we're all probably going for Monaghan just about at the weekend. I was actually, to be honest, when I was doing the picks for this, I don't like going for draws and I generally like to go for one team or another. But I was strongly considering this one being a draw. I wouldn't be surprised if Tyrone dig in and still get themselves a result against Monaghan this weekend. But I think the Farneyman just to edge it possibly against the rivals.
Yeah, it's this Tyrone 12, Monaghan 12 is how all of these games in the National League have always ended between these two counties. So I wouldn't be surprised if that's what happens this weekend. Let's move down quickly to Division 2. The Meath Mafia on the line. None of them are picking Meath. Everybody going for Galway except for Will. So Aisling or Tommy, pick it up here. Give us a reason why you're down playing Meath this weekend.
Meath have a good few injuries at the minute. Yeah, Meath have a good few injuries at the minute, Ash. Couple of players are back that we want to see back. Shane Walsh is back. I think Shane Walsh is back. I'm hearing that he's going to be starting. So we'll wait and see how that goes. But missing too many players that are important. Division 2 is going to be difficult. And I think I watched Galway in the FBD League final. I know it was on the surface of the Airdome, but they were looking good that night. They had Shane Walsh with his blonde tips. They had Kieran Malloy with his ponytail and the new fullback Sean Fitz with his mullet. And it's very hard to beat a team with a varied hairstyle like that across the board. I just think Joyce is going to get a bit more of a tune out of Galway this year.
The other Division 2 fixture that we're looking at is Roscommon against Cork. People say that we completely inflate Cork's chances on the show. I don't know why anybody would say that, but everybody's going for Roscommon this week. Aisling, why Roscommon?
I love Roscommon. I really do. I think things can happen.
You're the first person who's ever said that.
I really enjoy watching them. Like, I went out to see them against Galway last year. Terrible game. It was championship. It was knockout. Wet day, mucky day. Wasn't the best of games. But Enda Smith's in the middle. Unbelievable footballer. I think he's so underrated. I don't think he's talked about enough. And I just really enjoy watching them. A lot of talent. And when it clicks for them, it really does go right. And they play some brilliant football. So I think they had some good performances last year in the league. As I said, unfortunately, championship was only the one game, didn't go too great for them. But I think they'll be really hoping to build and get out of this Division 2, get back to Division 1 and contest in Connacht this year. So, yeah, I always don't write Roscommon off. I enjoy watching them.
Yeah, they're going to be in the promotion mix, no doubt there. Fermanagh against Antrim is the game we picked out in Division 3. Will, you've gone for Fermanagh, everybody else has gone for Antrim here. So you're Fermanagh are favourites for this game, Will, so that's a bit of a surprise. Why have you neglected the promise of Antrim for now?
Yeah, I don't know. I guess it's one of those things that Antrim, obviously people are reckoning that they will just continue on from the form that they had last year, which saw them get promoted from Division 4. I have to watch a lot of Division 3 football because I primarily cover Laois, Offaly and Westmeath because the amount of times we used to play against Fermanagh away from home. Like, it's a cliche, but it's a really, really difficult place to go. And these teams have met a little bit in recent years where they've played each other, one on the way up, one on the way down. I think Fermanagh are a team who can actually push for promotion this year. And as much as Antrim will hope to get a boost on a really good 2021 campaign, I fancy Fermanagh at home just to beat them. I'd love to have had more team sheets ahead of this, folks, for this weekend. But I think John Fogarty pointed out on Twitter last night, despite a new rule coming in that you're meant to release your team 4 days before games take place, there are 3 team sheets, I think, which are out for this weekend so far before the start of the National Football League. So we're picking a little bit blindly, but I'm going to go for Fermanagh just to beat their Ulster rivals this weekend.
Get the excuses in early, Will. Thank you for that. And finally, Leitrim against Cavan. Everybody going for Cavan in this one. James Donoghue comes in, takes Andy Moran's place, and the former presenter of Andy Moran just completely ditches him, just doesn't give him any backing whatsoever. It's pretty disgusting behaviour. So explain yourself, Tommy.
Explain myself. I just think when we look at it on format, like, it's going to be so interesting to see what Andy does in Leitrim, and I think we're going to see some good stuff. Keep an eye on it, but there's too much of a difference here. Like, Cavan being in Division 4, it's ridiculous. Provincial champions 2020, they went down last year, and it's not like the 2021 was a fluke or anything like that. Cavan have been a good competitive team for 10 years. It feels like last year was more of a fluke. Last year was more of a breakaway from normality. So Cavan being down there, they're provincial champions 2020. Leitrim have a really tough start. They've Cavan, then they've Tip. They only had one game in January, one competitive game in the FBD League. They had, racked up a good score against Sligo, but they fell short. New management team. They didn't win a single game across, I think, any grade in 2021. So it's hard to back Leitrim this weekend. Yeah. But keep an eye on it. There's going to be good stuff. And I'll just say, I have Andy Moran as my manager on our fantasy Gaelic football team. We've got a league for the fantasy for the football pod. So if anyone wants to join that, you can. But Andy Moran is my manager in that.
So is that Tommy Rooney saying that Leitrim are getting out of Division 4 if you've picked him then?
No, not at all. Not at all.
Right. Why'd you pick him?
You can make your changes as they go. I just think there could be something happening. Keep an eye on him.
He just looks well on the sideline, Tommy. That's why you picked him on your fantasy team. Good stuff, guys. That is this week's Quick Picks.
I absolutely adore them lads. I have unbelievable time for them, but they're a great bunch, but it's not acceptable.
John Duggan, you buzzing for the National League?
No.
Moving on.
Don't feel it has meaning. Still don't feel it has meaning.
Will it have meaning if there are 50,000 people in Croke Park tomorrow night?
Mayo won the league, didn't they, a few years ago? When did Mayo win the league?
It was an amazing day, unbelievable.
Doesn't mean anything. The All Ireland is the only thing that matters is the All Ireland.
Hold on a minute. Say that to Andy Moran.
It matters for Division 3 and 4 teams. It doesn't matter for the top teams. It didn't matter that Waterford won a National Hurling League in 2007. It mattered jot.
It does matter. It doesn't matter. It does. I mean, it's an absolute. Why would Andy Moran do a lap of honour after they won the National League in 2019 if it didn't matter?
It was massive for them.
All Ireland is the only currency I believe in.
But to the players, it absolutely does. The National League absolutely does matter, and of course it could matter more by being a part of the National League. We ended up in coppers after Kerry won the 2017 National League. I mean, that was a massive moment.
But that sums up where Kerry.
There was 82,000 people in Croke Park.
That sums up where Kerry. That sums up Kerry.
Why were the Dublin fans there then?
We don't go to National Leagues
that's what
celebrations.
I mean. There was literally
we win All Irelands. We win 6 All Irelands in a row.
You might have to start going to them now, John, though.
No, you're missing my point. There was
I'm completely sated, Ashley, and I don't need to worry about National League celebrations or not.
The stadium was full. I can tell you that there were Dublin people there in the stadium. Why did they show up if it didn't matter? They filled out Croke Park for a National League final.
Maybe they enjoy football.
But it doesn't matter. I mean, but it doesn't matter the competition.
We can enjoy watching a Premier League game, but does it ultimately matter at the end?
It matters to the people who show up and pay their money to go.
But there's levels of mattering.
Okay, so it does matter, you're saying, but it doesn't matter.
It's nice. It's like I've been to the curtain raiser for the Allianz League before, like the match tomorrow night, Dublin Armagh. I've been to that before and I've enjoyed it, and I've gone along, and it's been a good experience and it's been worth my while. But has it mattered in where I view it as a fan of a county? The league, to me, doesn't have the meaning that the championship has, and never will have. That. But like the championship is sport is about winning, and it's about getting to the pinnacle, getting to the summit, as Tyrone brilliantly did last year. That's what it's about. It's about winning, and the National League is a forerunner competition for the one that really matters, and that's why it's more important this year, obviously, with the truncated calendar. The league should be the championship. The league is the best structure. I've said it countless times on the show and on News Talk. It should be 4 divisions in the summer. The provinces are finished. I just feel that I'm probably frustrated because you got the right format here and the right schedule, and then the competition, though, that should be the main show.
Well, can I put this to you? Who's Luke List wins this weekend at the Farmers Insurance, are you saying to him, hey Luke, that's not the Masters, that's not a major, that's not the big show, therefore it doesn't matter?
It's a PGA Tour event. It's a proper event as part of the circuit.
The National League is a proper event as part of the season. It literally is. There's a trophy handed out for it.
It's a trophy, but do the trophy matter when the Waterford players look back in their career, and when the Mayo players look back in their career? What will they be thinking about? The All-Irelands they lost, or the National League that they won?
You can think about multiple different things, John. Like, I mean, it is possible for two things to be true. That the National League matters and the Championship matters more. I agree that, I mean, it would be great if this was the real deal, because it is the best competition. But it definitely matters. Like, I mean,
okay. Who won the National League 20 years ago in football?
I don't know.
There you go. Who won? Anybody can anybody tell me without googling it who won the National League 20 years ago in football?
Because it matters more now, and also, you're equating it to the All Ireland Championship.
No, because if things matter, you generally should know. Like who won it? Straight off the top of your head, should know who won it 20 years ago, who won it 10 years ago, who won it 30 years ago.
Well, I'll tell you this, John. I'll be able to tell you who won it 20 years ago when we're back talking about 2016, 2017, 2018, when Dublin had this stranglehold on the All Ireland. I'll definitely be able to tell you who won it then. 82,000 people in Croke Park for a league final. That didn't happen 20 years ago. So that is a fact that this thing has grown into something where GAA fans are now like, well, this is just better. We're playing the teams of a similar standard all the time. The National League 20 years ago, comparing that to today, is comparing apples and oranges. Surely you can see that. I mean, Kerry played Kilkenny, I think, in a National League 20 years ago, for God's sake.
That was Kerry beat Dublin. Was it by a point, was it, or something in 2017?
Yeah, remember the Dean Rockfree that came off the post at the end. An amazing game.
But what matters to Kerry people? That
beating Dublin.
That National League are winning one All-Ireland, that stretch that Dublin won.
But again, you're comparing the league to the All-Ireland, which nobody's doing that.
The All-Ireland the All-Ireland is the show. The league is a nice competition, but it's just nice. It's fine.
I think it's a bit
better. But it's so important, John, in terms of to get to that All-Ireland. Like, if Tyrone didn't have the form that they were in the league...
conceding 6 goals to Kerry?
They didn't grow and rebuild. They would never have won that All-Ireland.
Conceding 6 goals to Kerry?
That's what I mean. It was such a train wreck. They learned so much from that they actually grew and learned and developed in order to go on and push on and win that All Ireland. I believe if they didn't have that they wouldn't have. They wouldn't have went on to win.
It's an interesting point you make about last year. Last year was obviously devolved National League. No supporters there. I think the fans care. I really do. And I've seen like a couple of occasions, even when Roscommon got up a couple of years ago and they went down to Killarney and won, the massive crowd that they brought down there. And in fairness, maybe this supports your point that they almost outnumbered the Kerry people on that occasion, that they didn't care about that. But it was like actually getting the opportunity to play Dublin every year, and Tralee rocking whenever they came down, Croke Park rocking whenever Kerry would go up. Same with the Mayo and Dublin clashes around that time. I like my personal opinion, and like, I mean, it is just my view. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm sure there's a lot of people who completely agree with you. My opinion and my first-hand view of it over the last couple of years is that this thing has grown. This thing does matter. All of a sudden, I'm really looking for... it's appointment viewing for me tomorrow night to watch Armagh against Dublin. Sure, it doesn't matter if it's in relation to the All-Irelands, and that's if they play in an All-Ireland final, it's a way bigger deal. But
I think it matters for Division 3 and 4 teams more than the Championship matters for them. So I think if Division 4 team goes to Croke Park, and Offaly won a title, didn't they? Division 3, wasn't it? That matters more than the Championship does, because the provincial structure is finished. It's not working in football, and Offaly, we know, we're not going to win a Leinster title anytime soon. So that matters. But the structure is the right structure. It should be the structure of the main competition.
That I can agree with for sure.
And then you would see what you're talking about, Eoin, there, magnified and amplified tenfold when you'd see a game that really had meaning in the height of summer when, say, Roscommon go to Kerry, and it's a really, really big deal. And that's the way the GAA should be run for the football championship, rather than having this fudge structure now where you have seedings and you have the league as it is now, and then you have seedings to the provincial championship, when the teams that are doing well in the league are going to be in the provincial finals anyway. And you're having the provinces in the middle then you have your All-Ireland season with groups that, once again, the top teams will come out of the groups and into a quarter-final system. So you've a lot, I would say, a lot of games that really are not going to have that much on them, rather than what they should have done, which is had this league structure, abolished the provinces and had the league structure as the championship. That's why I'm frustrated about the league, because I don't see the league as having the weight that it should have in the summer.
Yeah, it is a great competition, and hopefully everybody can enjoy it for what it is this year, because unfortunately it's not going to matter a whole jot come the summertime.
Well, it's not going to matter a whole jot come the summertime.
It should matter.
But that's so does that not go against everything you've been saying the last 5 minutes?
But I mean, when it comes to the structure of the championship, if you win the league, it's not going to give you an extra seeding for the championship, is what I mean.
Yeah, okay.
But I would care deeply if.
Well, it's interesting because maybe I'm behind the times, and maybe I'm too old and I'm too traditional in my ways. It's not an appointment view for me tomorrow to watch Dublin Armagh.
Okay.
Not an appointment view to me. The big competitions in my head are the one it's all about striving to win the big one. And actually, you probably have a fair point that Tyrone needed to go through the pain to be ready for Donegal and Monaghan last year and to win those tight battles.
I will take everything I can get in terms of...
Clare won the league there under David Fitzgerald a few years ago. Meant absolutely nothing to me.
But the hurling has its own provincial league, and that's where I find the huge difference is that you almost have to keep your secrets close to your chest in the hurling league. Now we are under time pressure here, but
when you've had also I'd love to see Clare win a Munster title. Clare have won a Munster hurling title since 1998. So when things don't happen for a while, and if you do win a league, and say a team came out of nowhere, like Roscommon won a league, I think it would matter for Roscommon people. But I think for the very big teams, the Dublins and Kerrys, what would they want? 10 leagues or one All-Ireland? One All-Ireland, obviously.
Well, I don't think anybody's going to disagree with that. But that is very much not how I view the league. What is going on in the world of sport?
Luis Diaz could be joining Liverpool under the noses of Spurs for €60 million. That's a transfer that could happen. That's kind of breaking in the last couple of hours. 16 goals for Porto this season, 31 appearances for Colombia. On the pitch tonight, Huddersfield against Stoke in the Championship, 7:45. It is Rafa Nadal into the Australian Open final, a sixth time. We all talked about Djokovic winning 21. It could be Rafa on Sunday winning 21. He has only won once in Australia, 2009. He will play Daniil Medvedev or Stefanos Tsitsipas. So Nadal beating Matteo Berrettini in 4 sets at the Rod Laver Arena earlier today. Justin Harding leading on 9 under par on day 2 of the Dubai Desert Classic. Padraig Harrington doing really well, 4 under for the tournament at the end of his second round. Jonathan Caldwell 2 under par. Rory an early birdie on to 2 under. Will he make a move today? Shane Lowry is 1 under par. Leon Maguire got work to do to make the cut at the Cambridge LPGA in Florida. 1 over par, 10 shots behind the leader Lydia Ko. Stephanie Meadow was 3 over. Katie Taylor, Amanda Serrano was happening Saturday, April the 30th, Madison Square Garden. Book your flight, book your tickets. You've got a bit of spare cash. It could be incredible. 7 race card at Dundalk as well, Owen, today at 4:30.
John, enjoy the weekend.
Enjoy the National League.
Enjoy Armagh.
It was a good natured debate. Look, we're all friends here.
You're not the only person who thinks that way, for sure.
There's not going to be any headlocks off when the camera goes to an ad break.
You just got to accept it. Like myself and Aisling, that the season starts now this weekend.
But I love the passion. You see, this is your passion. So your passion is infectious, and that's brilliant. And my passion will probably be more for the Dubai Desert Classic this weekend and the launch of the Six Nations.
And of course, the Farmers Insurance, if you make a certain amount of money at the weekend. We will all be interested in that. Cheers, Sean. Here's what we got coming up on OTB Sports Radio today. 1 o'clock is OTB Gold, Ogie Moran in conversation with Joe. 3 o'clock is Friday Night Racing. 4 o'clock, John Caulfield is League of Ireland legend. Keith Andrews meets Philly McMahon at 6, and then Off the Ball live on your radios from 7. We're talking Katie Taylor, Deal or No Deal, up next with Phil Egan. But up next on OTB AM, Tommy Rooney has been in conversation with Kilcoo's Conor Laverty.
OTB AM on OTB Sports Radio, Ireland's first and only sports radio station.
Have you subscribed to the OTB Football Podcast?
After a game in the Premier League on a Saturday night, we had a few drinks, We were usually off on the Sunday. That's why I have these huge arguments with my dad, because the GAA go on massive drinking bans. Look, my dad is involved with Kilmiley. They won the Munster Club Championship last week. And I said to him, leave them enjoy themselves for 24 hours.
Maybe I believe in the team more than anyone else. I do believe that we have what it takes to finish top of the group, and that's what my ambitions are.
Subscribe now to the OTB Football Podcast stream wherever you get your podcasts, and download the OTB Sports app.
OTB AM.
With Gillette, put your best face forward with our new and improved razors.
All right, I'm delighted to be joined by Kilcoo footballer Conor Laverty ahead of the AIB GAA Football All-Ireland Senior Club Championship semi-finals, which takes place this weekend. We're focusing right now on one of the semi-finals, which is in MW O'Moore Higher Park in Portlaoise on Saturday, January 29th at 3 p.m. And it sees Kilcoo face off against St Finbarrs of Cork. The game will be broadcast live on TG Car with coverage starting at 2:45 p.m. This year's AIB Club Championship celebrate the toughest players in Gaelic games, those who keep going and persevere no matter what. And this Saturday's showdown is set to be no exception. Well, Conor, we're about 36 odd hours out from the semi-final. Is there a countdown going on in your head, or are you pretty relaxed ahead of this weekend?
No, listen, it's still a good wee while away with a lot of things to get happen before then. Just getting ready actually to leave the house to go to a Fitzgibbon game here in Dublin. So
lovely. You're busy at the minute between your work in Trinity College in Dublin and obviously the four young fellas you have. I know there's a photo on Twitter there recently enough. I think it's 4. Is it 4?
5. Oh,
you 5 kids. There you go. I got it wrong. There's my count.
No, we have a wee baby there this past couple of months. So.
Okay, well that's the future of Kilcoo football. I had a question for you because we were chatting to one of the Brannigans on the AIB Club Championship show a couple of weeks ago, and there's a clatter of Brannigans on the Kilcoo side. There's a couple of Johnsons. Have you many relations on the team itself?
No, my brother had been in the panel there this past number of years, but then he stepped away this year. So, but I think some way we're all related, and we're all it's all like having brothers on the team. We're that sort of tight.
Well, you've been on such a journey. It's 9 county titles in 10 years, and you've been there since 2003. Like, are you able to put it into context? 'Cause I'd wonder sometimes, Conor, do people from the outside take it for granted? The success that Kilcoo have had, because we're so used to seeing you pop up in the Ulster Club Championship, and Kilcoo won another down championship. But when you started off back in 2003, it had been an awful long time since Kilcoo had won pretty much anything.
Yeah, and I suppose 2003 was the first year that we won the Division 1 league, and that was a real landmark for the club. It was the first time they'd won a senior title at that grade in 70 or 80 years. But it was the good work done by men to get us through the divisions. I think we came until Division 1 in the late 90s and early 2000s, and then in 2003 we made the breakthrough, which was great. But it's a long time ago now.
It is a long time ago. And how's the body? Like, how are you feeling these days?
A guy, feeling good. Probably just you have to look after yourself that wee bit more as the more miles go on the clock. But it's just, but it's still as enjoyable as ever, and still training as hard.
I would have spoken to Andy Moran quite a bit on the football pod that we did last year on OTB, and Andy's story is quite known in that he had a couple of severe leg injuries in and around the age of 29, 30, and he came back a different footballer, a different animal, won a Footballer of the Year in 2017 at the age of 34 or so. Would you have changed your game or tweaked your game? Like, we're seeing a lot of players retiring or stepping away at quite a young age from intercounty football. Did you find that you had to rethink the way you played football as the years went on?
I think football has changed, Tommy, in a way. Gone are the days where you can kick a long ball into an inside forward line now and it's 1-on-1, or that's not really the case anymore. So I suppose you have to change with the styles, and you have to be very adaptable, particularly now with different teams and the way they set up. So adaptability is very important.
100%. And that's an interesting one looking into this weekend, because I know you'll do your due diligence and you have your 13, 14 days, and you probably had a half an eye on them as the provincials are going on. I can't imagine you'd have planned or had seen much of St. Finbarr's over the last couple of years.
No, and that's Mickey's form. Like, we never look past the team that we're playing. Like, we wouldn't have been even keeping an eye on anything else. Okay. We would have been really focusing on like the Glen and then match, and then the Derry Gonley match. So yes. Then after, straight away, like, we were back the next night training after Derry Gonley, and back into, then we started our process again of breaking down our own game, and then sort of starting the process of how we go about analysing the opposition. Okay, and like, I'd be interested in knowing what that's like at the top level of club football when you're in that stage when time is so tight. You only have probably a couple of sessions before, in between a provincial final and an All-Ireland semi-final. How much focus can go on the opposition team? I suppose that's like, we're very lucky to have a very experienced management team, and they go into serious detail on their stats and on their analysts and things like that there. But I think the one thing that Mickey brings more than anything is concentrating on ourselves, making sure that we're ready to go. And probably he's out of all the managers we've ever had, he's the one man who is solely focused on, listen, concentrate on yourself, get our own house in order, and then we'll take it from there. That's interesting to hear that. As a man, I'm sure with, as we all know, your own ambitions, I'd love to know, I suppose, where you want to get to in management. You were over a down under 20 team last year that
were incredibly impressive in the manner in which they conducted themselves on the field and off the field. You won that Ulster final against Monaghan, which was played in the backdrop of such tragic circumstances in the death of young Brendan O'Duffy of Monaghan. And, you know, we heard some of your own players talking about their own teammates, one of their own teammates having passed away at club level the year beforehand. Some of those interviews that night have stuck with people since. You know, it was remarkable seeing that. How has your own, you know, knowledge of the game and your own ambitions in coaching changed over the last couple of years?
I suppose I've always been interested in coaching from a young age, from being coaching being my life, but even off the field, because of my job. I was a primary schools coach in Down for 10 years, and then I'm actually in Trinity 10 years this year. So I've always enjoyed that side of it. I've always enjoyed the sort of the detail and the breakdown of games and trying to study opposition, and so I really enjoy that side of it. And listen, I was very lucky to get the Down under 20 job, and we clicked together. The players and the management just sort of clicked, and we were lucky that we got a bit of success, but ultimately we fell short of that off our goal. Whenever you break it down, so yes, and we'll be back again this year, and looking forward to hopefully going on another journey. It was a really exciting backroom team that you put together last year as well. You had Sean Boylan working with you, and you had Marty Clark, and there's a clip doing the rounds over the last 24 hours of Marty Clark at one of Stephen Poacher's coaching sessions, and everyone's kind of listening into what he's saying about, you know, styles in the AFL and how things have changed. What's Clark like as a football brain? I was lucky to play with Marty for a couple of years before he went to Oz, and then whenever he came back as well, and he's a very intelligent player, and I always thought that we had a good even relationship between a centre half forward and maybe an inside forward. We'd always had good understanding, so whenever I was trying to get a management team together, he was the first person that I rung. And people probably wouldn't know this about him. He, outside of the Kilcoo lads, he's one of the best trainers I've ever trained with. So he's a
really physically or
just even physically and mentally, he's an extremely good trainer. Very, very committed. Really can go to really dark places in his own training and all. So I've always have said that after the Kilcoo lads, Marty would be probably the next person that I train with.
It's very interesting to see that, and I suppose that's something that between your own experiences in Kilcoo and someone like Marty Clark, that's probably something you're trying to impress on a group of young footballers like you had in Down last year. And I'd be right in saying you're over the 20s again once more this year, are you? Yeah, we're over it again, and we're just trying to change a few things and maybe create a different sort of culture that has been there maybe. So it's an exciting thing, and then whenever you added Sean into it, tell us what Sean brings to the party. It was mad. It was so funny how it all happened. Because then you had to go for interview. I was trying to put the best possible team because I don't like losing. So I was like, I'm going to leave them no way that they're going to say no to me. And I was just sitting and I thought of different men, even men within Down, and who would give us that, because I thought maybe our youth would come against us in a managerial sort of thing. So I rung Sean and I put it to him. And listen, it's great to be able to call on Sean Boylan a friend, lift the phone and chat to him about things over the years. So I rung him and he says, okay, he says, leave it with me and I'll come back and let you know. So he's meant to come back after the weekend. This was on the Friday I spoke to him. He was meant to come back on the Monday. And on the Saturday night, he phoned me. And I didn't answer the call. And I said to my wife, Rushy, and I says, I don't even want to talk to that man. Because, if somebody rings you early, it's usually I don't want to let you hanging on. You need to go and sort it. So I was like, I'm going to have to ring him back. So I tightened the stomach and took a big deep breath. And he was very quick and very short. He just says, I'll be absolutely delighted and honoured to come in the capacity that you want me to. And he says, sure, we'll chat soon. And I says, brilliant, happy days. And that was it. And I think we had over 30 sessions because of the lockdown and things. You had to come back a wee bit later. And I think he only missed 2 out of all the sessions. He travelled right to the far end of Down and all. There was people just coming to our trainings to talk to Sean Boylan. Old men were coming to our trainings just to talk to him. I fully believe that. And because he actually, Sean, someone we've been lucky to get on off the ball, and like when Sean Boylan starts talking, the stories just flow, and such a fountain of wisdom, as we all know. But I know that when he worked with the DCU Sigerson team back around 12, 13, I was in around DCU. I just left around that time. I was so jealous that I had missed the opportunity to be around being coached by somebody like that, because whatever about adding to your own management team, like what sort of an impact did it have on young lads in Down, 18, 19-year-olds?
Yeah, and I think at the start, the young lads were sort of looking as if, because them lads wouldn't have remembered the teams of the Meath team, the great Meath teams. They wouldn't have maybe have heard of Sean Boylan, because it's just different generations really. So I actually got them to watch the RT program they done on Sean Boylan, and I think after they were sort of amazed that this man was working with us. But then once he started speaking to them, and to be fair, around that tragic time of the young lad from Monaghan passing away, I think Sean came into his own there for us as a management team and for the players. His experience and his knowledge, and even how to conduct ourselves and all. He was a great person to have around that time.
And so some managers, their style is to possibly do it on their own, to possibly, they like having that control. Maybe you see it in different sports across the world. When you're putting together your own thoughts on where you want to be as a manager down the line, is your backroom team something you think about a lot? Is that something that's going to be important to you?
I think it's important to have people of the same mindset as you, so it's not like a conflict. Not people that are going to say yes to you, but have the same values as the same principles as you. And then the other one was that it's a wee bit strange, because different people have told me you can't train the team and manage the team, where I sort of disagree with that. And I've had a couple of good arguments with genuinely good football men who have just been sold managers, and they were like, you can't do both. And I was like, well, the best men that I have worked with were able to do both. And then whenever Mickey came to Kilcoo, I had this thinking in my head, and then Mickey came to Kilcoo and he done both, and I was like, here, listen, if the best man in Ireland can do it, then it's a possibility that it's you're able to do it.
That's very interesting to hear, because as we all know, there's a slew of young intercounty managers who first got their chance this year. And I know quite a few of them would be of that mind as well. They want to coach as well as manage. And it'll be interesting to see how that goes. Very quickly, was there contact with the Down Senior Board this year? You mentioned earlier on that you were worried that a young coaching team might go against you when you were looking for the 20s job initially. Can you talk to us about what happened this winter before James McCartan replaced Paddy Talley?
Listen, to be fair, we were in the middle of Kilcoo Championship, so the sole focus was on totally Kilcoo. And listen, Kilcoo's number one, and that's the priority, and that's the way it'll always be.
So last one on this weekend, Conor. We've heard a little bit about the size of Kilcoo and being at the foot of the Moore Mountains. What is the vibe in the village like on these kind of weeks? Like, did the locals leave you be, or are they asking, how's it going? Are they coming down to training to watch it? Like, is the place just hopping?
To be fair, I think it's great for the supporters, all the success, and it's great for our families and for all the young lads to see the smiles in their faces. But as a group of players, we sort of keep ourselves sort of tight-knit and locked in, that we're focused on the task ahead, so we don't let outside noise get inside the group at all. And I think over the years, maybe years ago, people would have tried to chat to you, but whenever they ask you about football and your response is, it's not a bad day, or the weather's great today, I think they've got to know that we don't want to talk football outside of our group, and we won't. So I think that, but now they've been brilliant. Our supporters are super, and the village is looking great. But it's great for them, and particularly for the younger lads who want to aspire to be playing for Kilcoo now. Like the ROE lads are going to have memories for the rest of their life. Boys and girls are going to have memories that will cherish all their lives now.
Yeah, it's a powerful thing, a group or a community all being focused or driven in the same direction and going on that kind of journey. So I can imagine, while they may have realised they can't ask questions about football all the time, they must be incredibly appreciative of where you've brought them over the last 10 years. So, Conor, very best luck this weekend against St Finbarrs. It is the All-Ireland club football senior club championship semi-final. It's in MW Higher O'Moore Park. It's Kilcoo against St Finbarrs of Cork. 3 p.m. tomorrow, Saturday, live on TG Car, coverage starting at 2:45 p.m. This year's AIB Club Championship celebrate the toughest players in Gaelic games, those who keep going and persevere no matter what. And this Saturday's showdown is set to be no exception. Conor, best of luck and thanks a million.
Thanks very much.
OTB AM.
Yeah, great stuff there. Conor Laverty in conversation with Tommy Rooney before we came on air this morning. They, of course, are up against St Finbarrs in their club semi-final. We've got a couple of things to go through. Phil Egan is with us in studio. Phil, how are you getting on?
Good, yeah.
We're definitely going to get to deal or no deal in just a moment because there's plenty happening, but just quickly to get your take on the Taylor versus Serrano fight that's finally been announced. It feels like we've been dancing around this for a long time and at last it's here.
Yeah, it's been confirmed, so fingers crossed it all goes smoothly in the build up to it and there's no pre-fight injuries or anything. And yeah, it was a fight that it's been talked about for years. It's been put on ice a few times. The pandemic definitely had an impact on it, and it was great that it finally was announced. And what a fight in store! And look, I don't want to sound like I'm giving out here, but this is going to be an iconic fight. And I'm there thinking it's only 20 minutes. That's all we're going to get. These 2-minute rounds. It's been talked about before in women's boxing. Like, you know, when can we start watching 30-minute fights, or even if they go 12 rounds, because I think this could be a great fight. It's a really hard one to call as well, because Serrano has power, serious power. Obviously, Katie Taylor has fought fighters with power, Pursoon being the key fight, you know, the two fights. But I would worry that if she took the same kind of blows off Serrano, that she mightn't get through it. Now, I think she is quicker than Serrano. I think it could be very similar in that she starts quickly, and then Serrano's power, she starts to land shots and gradually starts to wear Katie Taylor down. Katie loves getting into scraps, but someday that's going to work against her. Now, some people have said that of her last few performances, she hasn't been as good, but I just think she's got through those fights, but always in the back of her mind is this fight. I think this is it now. This, like, she's obviously always training, but I can imagine now when that was announced, I can imagine the buzz that Katie Taylor has right now and the drive she has got to get this fight, to give her best performance, to headline Madison Square Garden, like one of the most iconic boxing venues in the world. Some of the great fighters that have been there, Muhammad Ali and Joe Fraser, fought there twice. Now you've got Taylor and Serrano are going to headline there. That's what I was saying, that it's such an iconic fight that it'll be over so quickly because of the 2-minute rounds. I don't like the 2-minute rounds because I think obviously, look, they're obviously a minute shorter, but it's just, it can be hard to get a rhythm going because just as you're building up a head of steam and you think you have your opponent in trouble, they can dodge you for a few seconds and then that's the round over.
Jake Paul is co-promoting this fight. My eyebrow was raised for half a second before I realised what sport we were talking about and some of the other people who've been involved in promoting fights. Not exactly the most controversial promoter of a fight, which is really saying something when we're talking about Jake Paul.
Yeah, absolutely. And whether people like the Paul brothers or not, and I don't pay to watch their fights, I don't watch their fights, but one thing they've done, and definitely I do enjoy the fact that they're calling out Dana White and the lack of pay that some of those top MMA fighters and UFC fighters get. That's a good thing, where they should be getting paid more because they're putting their bodies on the line, and Dana White isn't shy of a few quid. So I have no problem with that. And you know, if they've helped get this over the line, if Jake Paul has helped get this over the line, then as you pointed out, there's some shady characters in boxing. So Jake Paul is certainly he looks like a saint compared to some of them. We're
going to see Jake Paul in Croke Park, aren't we? This is what's going to happen. He's going to end up organising Katie Taylor's homecoming fight, and you'll be in this city of ours somewhere.
I don't know. I think you might. I think the only time you might see one of the Pauls is in Croke Park, maybe some halftime entertainment of an All-Ireland final or something.
Or the actual fighting themselves.
I just think, unfortunately, when this was announced yesterday and then they announced the details of the promotion tour, there was no mention of Ireland, and unfortunately I don't think Katie Taylor's ever going to fight in Ireland, and I don't think I can understand why they didn't want to bring it to, because if you're Eddie Hearn, you don't put Ireland on the tour for the promotion, because first thing you're going to be asked, Eddie, when's Katie fighting in Ireland? And for obvious reasons we know why Katie Taylor will probably never fight in Ireland. You think back to the Regency Hotel. It doesn't mean that there's not boxing cards taking place in Ireland. There is, but I just don't think we're going to get that high profile one that we want.
It is a shame. For me, it feels like if she wins in the Garden, that's kind of the final piece of the jigsaw, the homecoming fight.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And as well, just in the Garden, they're going to be the first women to headline, which is just massive. Like, Phil, this is huge for women's boxing just as a sport.
Yeah, absolutely. And do you know what? When she retired or she gave up the amateur game and she sat there in that press conference with Eddie Hearn and announced she was going to go pro, how many people envisaged what was going to happen? We thought, because it was so disappointing the way things unravelled at the Olympics for Katie, obviously the defending champion, and you just thought, is this going to be a good move for her? And my God, it's been unbelievable. And whatever people think of Eddie Hearn, he's delivered. Like, Katie Taylor has been pivotal to the female boxing getting to the Olympics, and now she's taken it to the next level in the pro game, where it opens the door. And as you said, Aisling, now we have this headline fight at such an iconic venue, and it's there on merit. It's going to be an unbelievable fight, and it won't be long coming around, and I would imagine there's going to be a lot of people booking tickets to go to New York.
Absolutely. And I think it's as soon as next week, isn't it, that the press tour actually starts. I think it's New York next week, London the following week, so this is going to be something that gets straight into a news cycle over the next little while. So it'll be interesting to see if Jake Paul has trained Katie Taylor in the interim, and we see a different version of Katie Taylor who's trash talking her opponents and all that sort of thing. That'll be something that'll sell a few more tickets maybe. Phil, that's good stuff, but there are other matters afoot. We are getting close to the end of the January transfer window, and it's been a pretty exciting morning. It is time for Deal or No Deal.
I signed for them after the Euros, and after my first day's training, I was driving home. I was actually thinking, regretting it. What have I done? Like I walked into a circus. It's amazing, isn't it?
So, Oyogo in Portugal and The Athletic is where we start, because they report that Colombia winger Luis Diaz, who we flagged on the show yesterday, will join Liverpool for £37 million plus 12 million in add-ons. The Sun report that the Reds hijacked the deal after an argument with super agent Jorge Mendes, although they offer little detail about the nature of the row. Diaz has clocked up 14 goals in 18 Premier League matches. Phil, what impact would he make, and what would his role be? Does he replace anyone in that front three?
It's amazing how quickly this happens, because we talked about this the other day, and it was all systems go. If he's going to the Premier League, it's going to be Spurs. And we had mentioned Liverpool have been linked with Diaz for a long time, and Atletico Madrid were another team that came up, and we were talking about how Porto, Atletico, Liverpool were all in the same Champions League group. And then, I come in on a Friday, I'm watching a bit of Rafa Nadal, and I'm thinking, yeah, it's going to be a busy day ahead. Then you start seeing some of the reporters from Merseyside. Paul Joyce was the first one I saw tweet about the Luis Diaz thing. I was like, whoa, this is... And when this happens with Liverpool, it happens quickly.
Thiago.
Yeah. Thiago, there was talk about Thiago for a while, but the Jota thing happened.
Jota was quick.
Fabinho was another quick one, where all of a sudden it's announced and you see them holding the Liverpool jersey and you think, wow, that was quick. Whereas other clubs have been in, drawn out sagas. Like you think of, say, Manchester United and Jadon Sancho. That just went on forever. Where I suppose with Liverpool, when they do their business, they get it done quickly, and they tend to keep their cards close to their chest. So
they're not as leaky as Manchester United.
No. And I don't think any Liverpool supporters expected anything to be done in terms of incomings before the transfer window closed on Monday. It was all about outgoings. Would the likes of Origi or Nat Phillips, or there was talk of Joe Gomez, Minamino had been linked with a move to Monaco. Leeds were sniffing around as well. So when you see this, it's a big one. And I suppose the front three have been unbelievable since Salah joined the front three in 2017. Obviously Mane was the season before. Firmino was there when Klopp arrived, and you think back to when Klopp took over and there was a few signature performances where you thought you can see what he's trying to do. Firmino was key to that. I think they won early in Klopp's reign away to Man City, where Firmino was brilliant that day. And then Mane arrives exceptional in his first start away to Arsenal. Then Salah comes and he's just unbelievable. But that's 5 years now. Like they've got unbelievable bang for their buck out of that front three. And obviously Jota has come in. He's been exceptional. Without Jota this January, Liverpool would have really been in trouble. And Jota came up with the goods, obviously, in the cup semi-final second leg against Arsenal. So it was it just showed that they need more depth in that attack. So Luis Diaz comes in. We talked about him during the week, where I thought he was perfect for a 4-3-3 system, and he was mentioned with Spurs. Spurs don't play that. They play three at the back, whether they want to go 3-5-2, 3-4-1-2. And I'm thinking, is he going to be a rival for Heung-min Son's position? And I don't think you need to replace Son. Son is exceptional. He's obviously injured at the moment and Spurs are missing him. So when you see him, if this deal does go ahead with Liverpool, you would imagine that he's going to play on that left-hand side. What does that mean for Mane, Firmino, Salah? The three of them, they're all out of contract in 2023. Obviously all eyes are on Salah at the moment, but there's a decision that has to be made on Mane and Firmino. What do you do with them? I'm sure they'll be offered contracts, but it's whether they like the terms of those. Are they short term? Are they happy with the pay that they're going to get? They could be looking at Liverpool saying, we have brought you a Champions League, a Premier League. We've brought the good times back to Liverpool. Give us more than we're worth. Or do they say, we'll go, and do Liverpool say, right, let's try and get some cash for them this summer? Some people could say it's just all about strength and depth. They're just trying to add to it and have more options, and Klopp can rotate and change formations as well. But he is a good player. He played against Liverpool twice in the Champions League. Now, Liverpool won those games comfortably enough. There was the one incident at Anfield, Liverpool, I don't know if you remember it, but it was Diaz that squared that ball across, where I can't remember the Porto player, looked like he had a tap in, and Porto were crying for a penalty in that one. But that was Diaz that broke, and he has pace and he can take on players. There's a goal that he scored against City in the Champions League doing the rounds as well. But yeah, I can see why Liverpool fans would be excited by it, but also because football fans get excited by something new and shiny.
Of course they do. This is a massive moment in the season. I mean, this is as excited as fans have been for quite some time. And also as well, who you attach that to, you mentioned Jota, and Bruno Fernandes is possibly someone as well who kind of comes to mind when you see someone I guess making this step up. And even Mo Salah, like, even signed in, nobody, well, I'm sure some people might have seen it coming, but I don't think the majority of people saw the sheer volume of goals that Salah did go on to score coming when he arrived from the league. So these kind of external signings that Liverpool are making and that clubs in the Premier League are making at the moment, they're starting to work, and they're starting to be a few real hits, and I'm sure that's what the excitement is all about this morning. Spurs obviously were due to be signing Diaz, and it didn't happen. They can't catch a break at the moment. Barca seem to have hijacked their Traore deal now as well. Barcelona have offered a loan move with a £29 million option to make a deal permanent. Sky Sports News report that Spurs will not chase a deal if Traore's head has been turned by Barcelona, where he started his professional career. So how big of a miss is this for Tottenham, and what impact will he make at Barcelona?
Look, he's 26 now, and we still talk about Traore the same way, that when he gets going, like, there's a few things better in football than watching Adama Traore in full flight. And when he came over to the Premier League first, he was with Aston Villa, and this was the Aston Villa team that got relegated. But I actually was at Villa Park. A few of us went over to see Villa and Arsenal. This is when actually Arsenal were up around the top of the table at that stage, so that's how long ago it was, Eoin. And Villa were really poor. Like, Villa were bracing themselves for relegation, but Traore got the ball in his own penalty area, took off. Like, it was 2-0 at that stage, and the whole crowd, just the buzz, the excitement got up off their feet. Of course, when he got to the edge of the Arsenal box, he gave the ball away. But you know,
there you go.
Yeah, like, I love watching him play. I don't know what he's going to do. I don't know if he knows what he's going to do at times. So I don't know how he's going to work for Barcelona. It probably tells you where Barcelona are at the moment, where they're signing players like Adama Traore, and that's no, I don't mean any disrespect to Adama Traore. He's a fine footballer, but a few years ago he's not even in the conversation to get into a Barcelona team. I think the problem for Spurs is they were looking to use him as a right wing back, and Traore's played there at Wolves before. I don't think it's his favourite position. I can see what Conte was trying to do, and his blistering pace on the counter attack would be excellent. But now,
Conte fuming this morning?
I'd say Conte at this stage, you're like, if you're Daniel Levy, you're going to have a tough weekend. Like, Tottenham have been notorious for doing stuff late in the transfer window anyway, but you've got this elite manager. You got to give him something to work with, because you watched them against Chelsea last week and they're so far off it. Now, Conte has come out and said that. Obviously, they played them in the League Cup a couple of times as well, and he said, we're so far off Chelsea. They don't have to get to Chelsea just yet. What Spurs have to do first is they have to become the best of the rest. Right now, you've got a gap between the top three and the rest. United are obviously fourth at the moment. I still think United are going to finish fourth. Spurs have a great chance, but they have to get to consistency level where they're contenders again for top four before they push on. But if they're not bringing in any players, like, I look at their defence and it's awful. Midfield, they need a proper midfielder there that can actually run a game, and they could probably do with another attacker as well. So there's a lot there that Conte needs, but if they don't act quickly, he'll walk.
Yeah,
he will walk. He's got previous of doing it, and you think back to, he won a Premier League with Chelsea. First day the following season, they start as champions. Conte rocks up to Stamford Bridge for their home game against Burnley in a tracksuit. Like, this is the guy that wears the finest suits, but he rocked up in a tracksuit. That was his way of saying, I don't care anymore. And they ultimately lost that game. Now, they still went on to win the FA Cup that season, but he was looking at a team that had won the Premier League saying, let's build on this. Chelsea didn't agree with some of the signings and he was gone.
Yeah, he's a hard man to please, but they knew what they were getting when they appointed him. Speaking of managerial appointments, Frank Lampard to Everton, and the talks have escalated. Reports have also suggested that he wants to headhunt Chelsea and Ireland coach Anthony Barry. So 1 to 10, rate the idea of Lampard at Everton, and if he gets it, would he last to next Christmas?
This is an absolute nightmare job, I think. We know how things fared at Chelsea for him in the end, and it's been doing the rounds again, the spat he had at Anfield. So it would be interesting if Lampard was across the way. Everton, Liverpool, those Merseyside derbies would have, well, they already have spice anyway, but thinking back to some of the things he had to say about Jurgen Klopp, that's when he was Chelsea manager. Now he would be at a club where they're so far off Liverpool. They're so far off where Everton should be, and that's not Lampard's fault. I don't think it's Benitez's fault either. I think the owner has given a lot of money to people that have not done the right thing with it. I think they've definitely a close shave with the way Vitor Pereira went on TV the other day. It was like something you would have seen in Dream Team. That's what sprung to mind when I was watching it, where this cannot be real. This guy has just done an interview and he's gone to give an update on TV.
Television.
It was unbelievable. Now, I know he was trying to fight his corner. It was like, I deserve more respect. Don't be spraying graffiti around Merseyside saying that you don't want me. Like, you have to listen to what I want to say. But the alarm bell should have been ringing for Mashiri when those bits of graffiti were seen around Merseyside. But then again, the alarm bells should have been ringing for Mashiri when it was first talked about that Benitez would come in. Because remember, it went quiet for a while and then it resurfaced and then he got the job, whereas clearly Everton fans didn't want him. So Mashiri has shown that he's not capable of making the right decisions. Lampard just seems like he's available. That's the reason he's getting the job.
Should he bring would it be good news for Ireland if Anthony Barry goes?
I would personally rather see Anthony Barry stay at Chelsea because he's probably got more job security. Plus, he's working with better players.
Yeah. One last thing quickly before we wrap, Phil, because time is against us. We spoke about Jesse Lingard yesterday. He's moved to Newcastle, still on ice. West Ham and Spurs have had interest shot down as they're seen as direct rivals. Leicester, Everton, Villa, Burnley, all interested. Will Jesse stay at Manchester United?
I think he's going to move, but I don't like the Newcastle one. Looks like it's not going to happen, and this was always going to be a problem for Newcastle. They're the richest club in the world now. People see them coming. Also, as well, they're in a relegation scrap. They're fighting for survival. So clubs are thinking, let's take them to the cleaners. And that's if it's true that the reported fees, that if the bonus that Newcastle would have to pay if they avoid relegation, 15 million. Now 120 million to stay in the Premier League. People would say that would still be worthwhile if Jesse Lingard scores goals that keeps you in the Premier League. But Newcastle are going to have this problem where they're not going to get deals over the line because people are just going to take the piss out of them basically, and that's the way it is. But I think he needs to get a move. I said it the other day, I think West Ham would make sense. They need a bit of a freshen up because they've had a long season. They have European football to come. So go back to where you were happy last season.
That makes no sense if he goes back there, because what was the headlines I wrote out this morning? Prisoner of war. United are terrified to be left with egg in their faces if they sell him to a rival. Sell him to Newcastle then, or not a rival necessarily. Sell him to another club and seeing him come good. Sell him to Newcastle, not West Ham, because West Ham could.
Are West Ham a rival though? I don't think so.
Mathematically speaking,
yeah, I don't know. I'd say let's revisit this in 2 or 3 months. I don't think West Ham will be up there.
I agree that there are clubs in a different tier for sure. Yeah. But right now, you're safer selling it to Newcastle than West Ham. That is Deal or No Deal. It's going to be an interesting weekend to see how a couple of those develop. Phil, have a good one. Cheers. That's it for this week.
Thanks, Phil.
I signed for them after the Euros, and after my first day's training I was driving home, I was actually thinking, regretting it, what have I done? Like I walked into a circus. It's amazing, isn't it?
Bit of a reaction to our conversation with John about whether or not the National League matters. Martin Furlong says, I've heard a lot of the Wexford hurlers of the 90s regret that they didn't beat Cork in the NHL final of 93, even though they won the All-Ireland in 1996. Robert says those league finals were blistering in the 90s. League matters, and I think that's definitely the case with hurling. I think that hurling's new format has diluted the league considerably. We're talking about football here. It's the football league that starts this weekend, and I still think it's a different kettle of fish. Powell says 74, John, if Dublin hadn't won an All-Ireland in 20 years, you will be happy to win a league. I'm sure you'd be excited if Spurs won the FA Cup, which I think is a really good point. Nobody says the FA Cup is as important as the Premier League. Tell that to Leicester when they're celebrating it last year. They would agree with you, but it'd also be like, this moment is pretty good. Aidan says Don Duggan is on the prowl this morning. Philip Nolan says, give over, the league doesn't matter much. Nobody's saying that the league matters as much as the All-Ireland. Maybe Philip Nolan thinks it doesn't matter at all. I would personally disagree with that. And then Mark says Tyrone won in 02 and 03, beat Cavan and Clones in 02 and Laois in 03. I think he's trying to make the point that that was the bedrock for them winning the All-Ireland then in 2003, but it's not going to affect your sports watching this weekend, I suspect, Aisling.
No, definitely not, and nobody is saying that it's better than Championship. No chance of that at all. But I was just thinking back to even when Meath were in Division 1 and seeing them play the likes of Kerry and Mayo and all these teams that we wouldn't maybe come up against otherwise.
Yeah.
It's so important. I really think it is. I enjoy it and I look forward to it starting this weekend, and I think there's a heightened expectation on it this year too, so looking forward to it.
But I would actually say it possibly is better than Championship. It just doesn't matter as much as Championship. The National League and the lack of certainty about certain results for the majority of it is what's great about it. But listen, enjoy both games this weekend. Aisling will chat to you again next week, no doubt. Big week next week in the build up to Ireland against Wales, so you'll be on the rugby beat for us. We'll chat to you then.
Absolutely, thanks a million.
OTB AM brought to you by Gillette. Good morning start with Gillette. Put your best face forward with their new and improved razors. You can keep an eye on the OTB Sports Radio across the day. OTB is back tonight from 7 o'clock, and there's a packed weekend of OTB lined up as well. Live from 1 o'clock on Saturday with John Duggan, and then 1 o'clock on Sunday with Joe Malloy. We're back here on OTB AM on Monday from 7:30. Have a great weekend. We're leaving you with Tommy Walsh.
Line, good evening, Tommy.
Hey, good evening, Nathan. Good to be back.
I was just saying off air that one of my resolutions was I was going to refer to you as Tommy Welsh for the year, because for years around Off the Ball I've been getting stick for not pronouncing it right, because it may always say Walsh, and then as I mentioned that to you, you said no, it's actually Tommy Walsh.
Yeah, well, no, you can call me anything around local and Welsh, up in Dublin, Mayo, Walsh, so you can call me what you want.
Exactly. Well, I think of the Mayo hurling manager Derek Walsh, and I'll always refer to him as Derek Walsh. And speaking, I'm going with this, speaking of Ballyhonus, my hometown, and one of the reasons you're on is because the lads down in Ballyhonus in the hurling club are organising a brilliant fundraiser over the next while that you're supporting. It is Hurling for Hope. You can donate now on idonate.ie. Just search for Hurling for Hope. What they're doing is they're going to solo a hurling ball from the Mayo Roscommon Hospice in Castlebar via Claremorris, Ballyhonus and Castlerea, and then they're going to finish at the Mayo Roscommon Hospice in Roscommon, which is 100 kilometres. All this happening 23rd of March through to the 26th, and most importantly of all, it is a vital fundraiser for two very deserving organisations, the Mayo Roscommon Hospice Foundation and the Irish Motor Neuron Disease Association, and you're throwing your full weight behind this, Tommy.
Yeah, that's right, Nathan. I suppose the Mayo Roscommon Hospice Foundation and the Irish Motor Neuron Disease Association, it means, I suppose, every fundraiser means so much to different people, but when they're local, I suppose you can see the benefits of it even greater. And when it's for the local charities, I think people will get behind it, and they'll throw, there'll be GAA people, there'll be celebrities, there'll be the local families, they'll all be chipping in, and they'll be doing that big solar run. There'll be no dirty cornerbacks coming in trying to take the ball off you on the way. So
are you sure?
Promise. Well, we might throw in Keith Higgins or something like that.
You obviously haven't walked the road between Claremorris and Ballyhonus too often.
No. Do you want to tell me more?
Well, I'll tell you, you wouldn't want to be walking. You'd want a hurl in your hand now if you were walking home from Midas nightclub back in the day.
But you were around anyway, I believe it. But yeah, it's for a great charities. So It's kind of trying to raise awareness as well, Nathan, and around Ireland, and hopefully people will go onto that website you just called out and they will donate. So all the GAA world, while Ireland is a big place, the GAA world is very small, and when you hear about fundraiser like this and so many people from GAA clubs getting behind it, I think everyone is proud to do so. So listen, we'll log on to those websites and we will donate, and you wouldn't know who you'd see on the roads from Mayo to Roscommon around March. So I think it goes on for 4 days. We're going to solo 100 kilometres, would you believe, and from the 23rd to the 26th of March. So listen, we'll ask people to get out there in numbers and support a worthy cause.
It sounds like there might be a Tommy Welch special appearance.
Yeah, I'll try my best. I was saying that to Frank. When Frank called me about it, there's a lot of times you can't get behind fundraisers, but definitely listen, we'll try and go up there. There'll be 4 days, I suppose. There'll be plenty of options. So I'll do my best there to get up if I'm around, Well,
Keith Higgins will show you a thing or two about hurling anyways, Tommy.
Yeah, well, I played with him in the Bank of Ireland. We play an annual match against the Army, Nathan, and I was always looked up to him as a footballer. Like he was tenacious. He gave it everything from the corner back. But in hurling, he played wing forward that day for us, and he got man of the match. I think the match was up in Athlone the same day, but yeah, he was brilliant. He was brilliant, and looking forward to seeing him.
Yeah. So again, it's idonate.ie. Search for Hurling for Hope, and you can donate there. And I'm sure we'll have lots more about that over the coming weeks as well. I think we're all just calming down after Sunday, Tommy and TJ Reid. Were you off your seat?
Yeah. I was watching it up in one of my friend's house. It was his 50th birthday, so he said we'd watch it in style. So yeah, they've done it so many times in the past, Nathan. I remember Henry's first year as manager with Ballyhale. It was his first step into management, and they were in the semi-final, I suppose, half favourites against Castlecomer, and they were being well beaten on the day inside Nolan Park. And with time up, Colin Fennelly, who was injured, because I was behind the goal, I saw him get injured after about 5 minutes of the second half, and he was kind of told to stay on. You might, win a ball or win a free. And time just up, went out around half-hour line, got in a hook or a block and flicked the ball away. Evan Shefflin came in, as he was wing back the same day, and came up and put the ball in the top corner. Comer out of the championship, and they were looking for their first senior championship that year, and if they bet Ballyhale, there would have been a great chance for him in the final. That was the first of it. The semi-final last year against James Stephens, not this year now, but last year, they did the very same thing. They were up by 7 or 8 points, the Village, and Ballyhale came back. They do it time after time again. Like the under-21 county semi-final recently, Owen Cody was playing, and they were getting beaten again, and last-minute goal. Thomastown had the game won. Last-minute goal, bang. They did it against St. Ryan. So it's not anything we're surprised with. They seem to do it time after time again. And I think, Nathan, it's not just that they never give up. They have the class to do it.
Yeah, so when TJ stood over that free, did you think this is only going to one place?
Not really. He's brilliant at placing the ball, but DJ Carey probably would have been the man in Kilkenny for power. So he would have sizzled it. Like, he had enormous power, enormous strong wrists. Towards TJ, while he's powerful in that, he would never be known for scoring, 21-yard frees, long-range frees, from maybe 25 yards out, the way, we'll say, Paul Flynn from Waterford would have done it. You'd always give him a chance. TJ was more accuracy, I would have thought. But I think in the interview after, he even said that he hadn't scored a 21-yard free for, in that kind of a match before. And as I was talking to someone the following day, he said that's probably because Ballyhale are 10 points up in every match. He didn't have to do it. But yeah, listen, it was a great goal, and I suppose there were so many people on the line, maybe they got caught blindsided, and powerful goal. But if you rewind even 10 seconds before that, Nathan, Joey Holden caught the ball from the half back line. TJ caught the ball that came in, and he was being well marshalled all day, and he caught it down around his knees, as far as I could see from the pictures. So it wasn't just the 21-yard free that he scored. It was the catch leading up to it. It was everything about it. So, listen, he was a magician, and I think he definitely is in the Eddie Kerr bracket, the Henry Shefflin bracket, the DJ Carey. They be, I suppose, the three kings of Kilkenny forwards. If you go back, we'll say 100 years, Trin Laurie Marr, midfielder, JJ Delaney, defender. They're the kings. We'll say we've had great hurlers, serious hurlers. But as regards the top guys, the top 5 or 6, I think TJ Reid is in that bracket without a shadow of a doubt. I don't think there's any debate as far as I'm concerned.
And there ain't no bracket higher than that. Like, that is some very high praise, and still doing it at 34. When you think back to him breaking through, like, he was part of that squad, and I think on the fringes in 07, came off the bench in 08, and 09 was captain in 2010, and then firmly establishing himself from 2011. What are your memories of him coming in and being around the squad when he was in his early 20s?
Yeah, well, he was a magician from 17. When he was younger, he would have played a lot in goal, and when he was maybe 14 on the minor teams, when he was too young probably to play out the field. So his hands were always magical. And when he came on the scene, he was an absolute magician. Like, he definitely went straight into the top bracket of fielders in the game, even within that Kilkenny team who had great men in the air. TJ could win the ball from in front or behind, whether that was midfield, half forward line or full forward line. And I think it all changed from, I suppose, to rise into the Eddie Kerrs and the Henry Shefflins and the DJ Carey bracket when he got that injury against Galway in 2012. His knee, I think he broke his kneecap. And that's when he transformed as a physical, we'll say, elite athlete. In that sense, for it, he always had the hands, but fitness, physical strength, mental strength, I think that all came and after that, because he had to spend 9 or 10 months in a gym with nothing else. He couldn't go hurling because he was out with that injury. That was a 9 or a 10 month injury, and came back in 2013. It was still only kind of coming back because it was a difficult injury to get over. We didn't have a great summer, but from 14 on, listen, he was unmarkable, really, whether the Kenny team was going well or not. And he always did it for Ballyhale, and for Kilkenny, I just think after the 2012 injury against Galway, he just transformed himself in the gym, and has, he's still doing it now at 34 years of age.
When young lads were coming in and around the Kilkenny squad, what were you looking for? Because I was listening to the football pod yesterday with James O'Donoghue and Paddy Andrews, and James was talking about coming in as a 18, 19-year-old, been around the Kerry squad for a couple of years, known he wouldn't be in the first team, but been thrown into training sessions with Mark O'Shea and Mark O'Shea. He said he wouldn't get a touch, like literally would not get a touch, and quickly realised, if I'm to be a part of this Kerry side, I need to get to a level where I can challenge a Mark or a Tomas O'Shea. So when young lads are coming in and around that Kilkenny squad, what were you looking for that would make them stand out and think, actually, a couple of years' time, this lad is going to be a big asset?
Yeah, you're never thinking about a couple of years' time. You're thinking about probably the following week, get on the panel, get on the team. So I suppose my own experience was going in. It was Charlie Carter I was marking, John Hine, Brian McAvoy, Tots McAvoy. All, stars of the club game, stars of the inter-county game, all stars, all Ireland winners, did it in big days. And I suppose at the start, to be honest, you're not able for it, really. You're getting well beaten. But slowly but surely you start getting better as physically, mentally, I suppose your hurling just speeds up as well. Like if you mark better players, you will get better. And slowly but surely you go from thinking that you'll never even get on the panel to, I can do this. Suddenly, I catch a ball or two here, or someone gives out a hand pass Like, this is where the big players are important. When you're young, like, you need someone to throw you out a few hand passes, get you into the game, build your confidence so that you know you can survive. So I think the first few years, Nathan, it's about surviving and getting your chance then, and suddenly it starts becoming easier. And especially when you're with the big players, if they're good leaders, they'll give you out the ball, they'll bring you into the game. You make a mistake, they'll blame some other player, they'll tell you not to worry about it. So that was my experience coming in from as a youngster, and I think we tried to do that then. The boys were brilliant. The Brian Hogans, JJ Delaney's, they were brilliant to the youngsters. Paul Murphy, Owen Murphy, all these guys coming in. They loved them lads because they looked after them. They didn't see them themselves as, because they had a couple of All-Ireland medals or a couple of All-Stars in their back pockets, that they were better than the young lads coming in. They didn't wait till June, July, gradually bring back your fitness and then we'll come onto the team, take your guys' places. No, they treat them with respect.
Yeah, it is insane what TJ Reid is doing with club and county. So 5 All-Ireland club titles with Ballyhale already, 7 medals if you throw them all in there with Kilkenny, and head to a final again against Ballygunner. With Dean Mason, the goalkeeper for Ballyhale, young lad, like 2021, has never lost a game of championship hurling with Ballyhale. Won every county title, every Leinster title, every All-Ireland title that he's contested. Like that culture of winning, like that's why that happened, I guess, with TJ Reid in the last minute. When you think of great teams, Fergie time, Manchester United, even watching Tom Brady last weekend, it didn't come off, but you always sensed something could happen because they've done it so many times before. Like that culture that they have right now in Ballyhale, something you can't fake.
Yeah, and it comes from experience, it comes from winning. And you see, when you win as a youngster, there's no pressure on you, Nathan. There's the pressure of playing well. That's always with sport. You want to be your best. You're driven that way. You don't want to lose one ball. You don't even want to lose a run in training. But the pressure of getting a title behind your name, that's not there for the Ballyhales. It wasn't there for Brian Fenton and those Dubs, the Kieran Kilkennys. It wasn't there, we'll say, for our Kilkenny team, the Kerry team of the golden years. So the Cork, we'll say, the great team of the noughties with Sean Oak and the lads. They won early, Nathan. So when they got to an All-Ireland final, or the Ballyhales, they get to a county final, there's no consequences for them of losing, bar the disappointment of losing that title. They're not wondering, will we ever win a county final? They have probably 2 or 3 of them in their back pocket. So it's just about winning the game. So that's what Dean Mason has. Like, you take Ballygunner going into the final, they're going into it saying, this could be our only chance of ever winning. Look at the hard road we had to take to get to Croke Park. Ballygunner have won 7 or 8 county finals in a row in Waterford. Look at the disappointments that they're after having, heard young O'Keefe to score the goal, the last time, the 2 goals against Slot Neal. He was talking about, like, they're after going through losses after losses in the Munster campaigns. Now they're suddenly in an All-Ireland. They'll be wondering, with 5 minutes to go after 2 points up, hang on. Whereas Ballyhale don't have to think about that. It's just another match for them. I know it's an All-Ireland final, but they all have 3 and 4 All-Ireland medals in their back pockets already. So losing won't scar them. Towards, if you've never won it, obviously it can leave a big scar. So I think it's the pressure, Nathan.
All our club championship coverage and Off the Ball is brought to you by AIB, proud sponsors of the Football, Hurling and Camogie All-Ireland Club Championship. You can check out #TheToughest for more. How did the club season go for you, Tommy?
Yeah, the club season last year ended in savage disappointment. We were beaten to semi-final by O'Loughlin Gales, so we had chances to win it and maybe a bit more experience for us at that stage. We hadn't been there since 2004, and maybe we would have got over the line, and that's where the experience of winning and playing the big days probably plays its part. So while we had a good year to get to a semi-final, listen, it's not a good year when you're beaten. So it's all about us to bring on the young lads and stay building, and that's what we'll be trying to do this year.
You're still loving it?
Still loving it, yeah. But listen, I'm not sure what I'm going to do this year. I'll be going back hurling, but will I be playing senior? I don't know.
Is this the Tommy Walsh retirement interview?
Oh, no, I'm not retiring. I never retire. No, I'll be going back training and all that.
Right.
You know yourself, when you get to, I'll be 39 this year. So listen, we'll see how it goes. We'll see how injuries go on that this year. But I'll be playing for the next. I said 40, so I'll be hurling till I'm 40. All right.
Right.
Which team I'm on, I don't know.
Well, there'll be a brave man to drop you now from the senior side, in fairness.
Yeah. Well, I'm busy at home now. I bought 4 chickens there at Christmas, so we're farming chickens. So I don't know. I'll have time for training this year.
And are you making cash out of selling the eggs, or what's going on?
Well, are you willing to buy a few?
The price is right.
Well, it's Finn is selling them, so he got them for his birthday. So we're flat out, we're up every morning putting them out, and they're hard to put back in. And it's our first time doing it, so they're only starting to produce the eggs the last couple of days. So hopefully now it'll be the summer now, they'll be hatching every day.
Well, listen, free advertising, a go here and off the ball for you, so it could be a nice little enterprise come the summer, Tommy.
Please God, yeah. We'll leave them at the gate, and we'll leave the little...
See where it goes from there. An honesty box, exactly. I know you're busy on the coaching side as well with the young lads in Tullerone. One of your teammates is at a slightly different level at the moment in Henry, preparing for the start of the league down in Galway. And we're all looking forward to, I think, Galway against Kilkenny. What's your sense of what Henry's expecting out of Galway over the next couple of years? Is it a project to take a team without Joe Canning, who are in a bit of transition, sort of finding themselves and trying to change the culture there? Or do you think he's going in thinking, I come in an All-Ireland with this group, whatever the group is?
Yeah, he'll be going to win every game, I would say. They were beaten, by Dublin, beaten well, even though they didn't have many of their starters from last year out, but they were still well beaten, so he'll know he has a lot of work to do. There's a great buzz up in Galway. I know a few Galway people. There's serious excitement, and I think you go and look at anytime Davy Fitz goes to a new county, he brings serious enthusiasm, enjoyment. The whole place gets behind him. Mick O'Dwyer will say when he left Kerry, he went to Kildare, he went to Laois, brought great success. Paddy O'Shea went to Westmeath. So when a new manager goes to a new county, it does bring, especially in all that Henry has achieved. So I think he'll be going to win a league, a Leinster and All-Ireland. Everything that he can win, he'll be trying to do it. And, the best of luck to him.
Championship show on OTB Sports.
One of those games where you really saw the power of momentum in sport.
In his first county final appearance in 2019, he scored 1-3 and got man of the match. They're very, very economical.
How do you qualify as the most impressive statsman in the country?
Don't miss a moment of the GAA Club Championship. Download the OTB Sports app, subscribe to the GAA